Because if they did, they would recognize that a lot of the stuff that he is pointing to in his content nuke, which I like to call content puke, were addressed already. Did Ethan not know that they were addressed already? Did he do any research on the matter? Does he care about the truth? Does he care about my actual perspective? Let's get to the YouTubers who backed the by Noah Samsen, who made a wonderful video. There's a bunch of TOS in it. I am going to hold on. Let me see. What else? Does anyone have all the TOS notes from the video? Let's get started.
And want to help me make more of them and faster? Consider joining my Patreon. Thanks. About a month ago, the 6 million subscriber YouTube channel H3H3 Productions released a video called Content Nuke Hasan Piker. In this video, the host, YouTuber Ethan Klein, alleges that the political streamer Hasan Piker is an extremist that supports terrorism and terrorist groups.
And over time, I started to learn that my co-host, he really likes terrorists.
Promotes anti-Semitism and is radicalizing his viewers to do the same. He accuses Hasan of being a denialist and goes on to accuse him of prolonging what he calls the Israel-Palestine conflict with his radical views.
This conflict will never end until people realize that Palestinian liberation and Israeli security are not mutually exclusive. You need both, and it can be done, but not while people like Hasan lie, propagandize, and incite hate. It's people like him, ironically, that prolong the conflict indefinitely.
In this video, Ethan also
it's people like me that prolong the conflict, for sure.
Criticizes Twitch, the platform that Hasan streams on, accusing the company of having a systemic problem of anti-Semitism. He cites the company's open support of Hasan, its sponsorship of a live event that Ethan claims was anti-Semitic.
I feel like this is indefensible, blatant, obvious anti-Semitism, and this was greenlit by Twitch to appear on their main stage.
And its alleged discrimination against Jews through a recent ban on new account signups from Israel. So I'm going to tip my hand a bit here and say at the outset that quite possibly the worst video I've ever seen. It's plagued with factual errors, misrepresentations, contradictions, and overt pro-Israel Bush-era U.S. State Department propaganda. For a more thorough breakdown of all of this video's problems, I'd recommend the YouTube channel Bad Empanada. He's gone point by point with these and debunked them, many of them months prior to the release of Ethan's video. Hasan himself has also responded to most of these claims also months ago. I will leave these videos linked below in a playlist. Given the existence of these,
like one should ask themselves, like, how I had the foresight to be able to debunk stuff that came out in a video months prior to the video coming out. How was I able to do that? Can I see the future? Is that what's going on here? That I'm capable of seeing the future? Like I knew what the new contents were going to look like? This is a question that has been on my mind. Like how do defenders of Ethan Klein at this stage not realize that? Did they watch the video addressing? Did they watch the video of mine addressing Ethan Klein's content nuke 3 months or 4 months before the content nuke ever came out? Because if they did, they would recognize that a lot of the stuff that he is pointing to in his content nuke, which I like to call content puke, were addressed already. Did Ethan not know that they were addressed already? Did he do any research on the matter? Does he care about the truth? Does he care about my actual perspective? Or was his goal to simply tar and feather and viciously smear a very vocal advocate for Palestinian emancipation?
These dozens of other responses, I'm not here to repeat their arguments, you can just go watch them. No, the real reason I'm talking about Ethan's video today is less about what he says in it and more about what he doesn't say, the things he chooses to leave out. Save for a passing mention of an outdated, vastly underestimated death toll of Palestinians in Gaza, Ethan omits the
I sent that video to my girlfriend's brother and he said he didn't address most of the points and said you just spent most of the time saying you weren't anti-Semitic. Okay, well that's insane.
Palestinian side of the story entirely. He doesn't talk about Gaza. He doesn't give any specifics about what Israel is doing there. And this is an issue for a few reasons, but mainly all of the points he raises are directly tied to the Gaza genocide. side. The main targets of this video are some of the only groups in the world that have violently resisted Israel's side, and the few figures in independent media that are willing to tell the Palestinian side of the story. By leaving out the broader context, Ethan is able to present a false perception to these millions of viewers about the motivations behind the people his video attacks. He's able to frame them as mindless, supporting, America-hating anti-Semites, and not what they really are, which is anti-side people that are against. Western media manufactures consent for large-scale terror operations across the globe in a number of ways. There are more overt forms like atrocity propaganda. There are also more subtle ways like deceptively framing information, using passive language, and creating false perceptions about conflicts through things like burying the lead and lies by omission. All of these tactics are present in Ethan's video and the wider online smear campaign that motivated it, but it's that last thing that I think does quite a bit of damage, lying by omission. The way Ethan's video is framed seems to imply that Israel's in Gaza is not actually, but he never explicitly uses the term himself, but it's presented as just another thing that's happening in the Middle East that's sad, but ultimately the product of a war. That there are deaths on both sides, and that all we need to have peace is rational dialogue between these two sides. This could not be further from the truth, and to better understand this, we need to talk about Gaza. Thus far, I've been using the term in reference to Israel's actions in Gaza, but it seems like a lot of the people using it on social media here have a general lack of understanding of the gravity of what that term actually means. It isn't just bad thing that's happening where people are dying. No, that's not what it is. It's a Holocaust. The US-Israeli Holocaust. That's what it should be called. Israel is using everything in its power to eradicate Palestinians from the planet. The fact that Israel's actions in Gaza amounted isn't controversial, not among the experts at least. This is the near universal consensus among top human rights groups and humanitarian organizations operating on the ground in Gaza that Israel is committing countless crimes against humanity. There is the Amnesty International report, a 300-page report that accused Israel in Gaza. There was the Human Rights Watch report accusing Israel of crimes against humanity in Gaza, specifically through the intentional deprivation of access to clean drinking water. The United Nations, Euromed Monitor, Doctors Without Borders, the International Committee of the Red Cross, Israeli human rights groups like B'Tselem, various Holocaust scholars, they're all saying the same thing.
I get this sucks and he's unhinged, but I'm getting really tired of this constant talk. Like, we all get it. We understand your opinion on this. Why not just go back to ignoring his crazy ass like you've done for months? I want news, not Hasan enemies updates personally. If you think that this video is entirely about my enemies and an update for it, I think you're missing the major point here. Okay? Noah's video is not about drama. Noah's video is about an ongoing and how supposedly quote unquote independent media outlets, okay, supposedly independent content creators who sometimes masquerade as apolitical or centrist have actually carried water for the continuation of this and have actively diluted their audience by lying or by omitting key details. Okay. The reason why I'm talking about this also is because this current administration is now moving to deport legal permanent residents and students on student visas by using the same exact smears that these supposedly apolitical, centrist, or even liberal pro-Palestinian content creators are using against people like myself. Okay? It's the exact same method that they're using. They're just saying every student that is against actually secretly a vicious anti-Semite and they must be deported from this country. It is directly related to issues that I'm talking about.
Last year, the International Court of Justice ruled that the case for Israel in Gaza is plausible. It was a preliminary hearing, and the final rulings on cases typically take multiple years, but the ICJ issued several provisional measures to prevent the possibility of it taking place, provisional measures which Israel has failed to follow completely. And then there was, of course, the International Criminal Court, who issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who are now wanted international war criminals. Towards the start of his video, Ethan mentioned a death toll figure of 40,000 Palestinian people.
Of course, if you compare the raw numbers, Gazans have lost a lot more than Israelis. 40,000 people have died, and neighborhoods have...
40,000 people have been killed. Okay? It's not just Israelis that get killed. Palestinians also get killed. Palestinians have not simply died. Okay? They get murdered. And the number is not 40,000. It's much higher than that.
have been complete.
This is an important distinction. It's not simply just drama, okay? It is an important distinction because this verbiage, utilizing terms such as this, are important to, like, whether the person using that statement is aware of it or not doesn't even matter. Passive language of this sort is an attempt to pacify the audience that's listening. Okay? If it wasn't so successful, the New York Times would not consistently utilize it.
Completely flattened during this war.
The figure he cites is wrong. It's just wrong. Credible estimates have placed the full scale of the in Gaza at over 65,000 deaths due to traumatic injury alone, with further projections that include indirect deaths in the hundreds of thousands, potentially over 10% of the population of Gaza. Ethan's brief and false citation leaves a lot of other things unmentioned, like how the vast majority of these deaths have been Palestinian civilians, including over 15,000 children. The United Nations described Gaza as a graveyard for children just months into and after that, Israel only ramped up its child killing. Ethan does not mention that over 1,200 families have been completely erased from the Gaza civil registry, meaning that every single member of their bloodline has been killed. Nor does he mention that the massacre of these innocent civilians has been intentional. Israel has a long history of intentionally targeting Palestinian civilians. This dates back to the Nakba, of over 700,000 Palestinians from their land in 1948, which included the massacre of thousands of civilians. And it's also evident in all of Israel's many previous violent incursions into Gaza specifically. During Operation Cast Lead, starting in late 2008 to 2009, Israel had about 1,400 Palestinian people. 300 of those were children. During this widespread massacre, Israel ordered people to shelter in schools, so-called humanitarian safe zones, then proceeded to bomb the schools and kill people by the dozens. This practice has continued at an even larger scale in the latest escalation in Gaza.
Firas, my brother Firas, he screams. The
There's
pain
TOS
is
here.
overwhelming as corpses lie by his feet. These are the moments just after an Israeli strike on a school sheltering thousands of displaced Palestinians.
There's a little baby and his face
During
is
the
bloody.
2018 border protests, or the Great March of Return, which were recognized by human rights organizations as being overwhelmingly peaceful, Israel fired on the peaceful crowds with sniper rifles, injuring thousands and killing hundreds. The UN reports concluded that Israeli snipers were intentionally targeting children, medics, pregnant women, and disabled people. Israeli snipers later publicly, gleefully recounted their experiences of hunting
42 knees in one day. The IDF said, we know exactly where every single bullet landed after this. They tweeted it out. And then when people were like, what the fuck? So you're saying you deliberately kneecapped Palestinian children who were engaging in an active peaceful protest? They deleted the tweet.
Palestinians for sport, bragging about the number of kneecaps they could shatter. This trend has continued in Israel's latest escalation since October 7th to an extreme degree. IDF snipers are intentionally targeting children for execution by shooting them in the skull and in the heart. Healthcare workers have testified to seeing Israeli drones hovering outside of hospitals, picking off children. That's where they're shooting them and injuring them and then circling back to execute them.
What I think I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children. And we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day, operating on children. He would say, I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter...
No one is coming after America for killing 400,000, 2 million civilians in the Middle East, blah, blah, war crimes, okay. Why start with Israel? Because you got caught. Embarrassing, right? Only a matter of time. Hell yeah, you're fueling the fire. You spend all day keeping this narrow view and punishing people. Do you think I'm in support of the American invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan? Are you fucking stupid? Are you insane?
Came down and hovered over me and shot me. And that's a clearly...
Like, that viewpoint is so fucking stupid, by the way. It literally is just like, so what? So what if Israel does a little bit of genocide? America gets to do it all the time is an insane way to fucking argue your position. You know what I mean? Saying blah, blah war crimes. Absolutely psychotic.
A deliberate act, and it was a persistent act, persistent targeting of civilians day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day. And that meant 10 to 20 dead, 20 to 40 seriously injured.
Just hunting Palestinian children for sport. It's pure terrorism. The Israelis also have a history of murdering Palestinian civilians by running them over with bulldozers and tanks. Recall the story of the killing of Kamal Zair from April of 2002. Israeli tanks shot and killed him and then proceeded to run him over. He was 57 years old, wheelchair-bound, and waving a white flag. Another prominent case of this was Rachel Corrie, a 23-year-old American peace activist who was murdered by an Israeli bulldozer while protesting the destruction of Palestinian homes in Gaza. Israelis, for years after her murder, celebrated the day by making pancakes with Rachel Corrie's face painted into them. In the latest escalation, individual Israeli soldiers have admitted to committing these atrocities by the hundreds. The only reason we have these admissions is because Western outlets have written articles with concerns over how the mass murdering affects these soldiers' mental health.
Literally, it's like that's the only time you get the coverage of like some of the more heinous acts that like IDF bulldozers have engaged in Gaza because of how it hurt their feelings and how one of the Israeli occupying force soldiers actually killed himself because he couldn't deal with it. He couldn't eat meat any longer because it reminded him of the fucking bodies of the Palestinian children that he rode over with his fucking bulldozer.
Element to the case that Israel is committing genocide is its continuous intentional deprivation of the basic necessities for life for Palestinians in Gaza. They've been using starvation as a weapon of war, a war crime, and a crime against humanity. Most recently, Israel's response to the quote-unquote ceasefire in Gaza is to continue this mass starvation while explicitly stating it as a matter of policy. They have blocked humanitarian aid throughout the genocide in violation of international law, the ceasefire orders, and the ICJ's provisional measures against genocide. The pretext they've fabricated for this policy of intentional starvation is that Hamas is looting these aid trucks. They have provided no evidence for this claim. What we do have evidence for is that Israel has protected and supported criminal gangs with ties to ISIS in areas that Israel has full control over. And these groups have been looting aid trucks. Israel is intentionally depriving Palestinians in Gaza of access to clean water. Oxfam reported that Israel has destroyed over 1,000 miles of water and sanitation networks, leaving less than 7% of pre-war water levels in Rafah and North Gaza. Israel has also partially or entirely destroyed over 80% of water and sanitation infrastructure in Gaza, including all 6 of its mainline wastewater treatment plants. Brutal, violent attacks on the healthcare system are another aspect of the genocide. They've damaged or destroyed every single hospital in Gaza and murdered countless medical workers, doctors, nurses, rescue workers, and healthcare staff. They've kidnapped doctors and held them without charge, where they've been tortured. Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, Gaza's leading orthopedic surgeon, was kidnapped by Israeli soldiers, brought to an Israeli prison, and then reportedly raped to death. The latest UN reports have concluded that over 90% of the buildings in Gaza have been severely damaged or completely destroyed. If you watch any of the footage coming out of Gaza, this is made quite clear. Israel's destruction includes every single school, hospital, mosque, cultural center, church, residential areas. Everything has been bombed. It's estimated that it will take a minimum of 15 years to remove the debris and unexploded ordinances from the Gaza Strip. That's just removing it, by the way, not rebuilding. In September, the UN released an estimate that because of Israel's illegal and inhumane blockade around Gaza, which regularly limits the transfer of things like concrete into the Strip, fully rebuilding Gaza will take 350 years. Gaza is about 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. It is one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. It is in this area that Israel has dropped equivalent to that of multiple nuclear weapons. Israel has done this with full knowledge that over half the population of Gaza is children. So no, this isn't just a case where 40,000 people died. A lot more than that happened. One of the most tragic elements of the Gaza genocide is that, as crucial as it may be for the factual record and eventually holding the perpetrators accountable, merely recounting these statistics does not afford Palestinians the dignity of humanity. They are simply reduced to numbers, to tens of thousands of names on a registry, as if they aren't human beings with dreams, hopes, hobbies, interests, and love for the people around them. If you've had this feeling as well, I want to recommend a book. It's called If I Must Die. It's written by renowned Palestinian poet, author, and teacher Dr. Rafat Al-Arir. It's full of stories and poetry and history about life, or rather survival, in Gaza during occupation and genocide. It is beautifully written and humanizing beyond anything you'll ever get from most coverage of Gaza, especially in the West. I have a friend from Gaza. His name's Ahmed Sarsour, and he's a very talented poet. We got in contact on social media, and when I read his work, it moved me in a very similar way to the way Dr. Rafat's words have. Ahmed has a sister, Rania. She is a mother and a gynecologist from Gaza, Gaza and is seeking help after being displaced in February of last year. She and her children were forced to flee their home, and her life was further devastated when her home and her family members' homes were destroyed. She gave birth to her baby, Rose, in a hospital without proper care and no anesthetic, and now faces a dire situation with limited resources. I've linked her fundraiser in the description. Support if you can. The funds raised will go towards essentials like diapers, baby formula, medicine, basic living items, rent, and travel expenses for relocation. Another friend of mine, Ahmed Matar, is a 27-year-old inventor from Gaza. He makes these brilliant videos showing the process of constructing creative inventions to use in order to survive in Gaza. After the so-called ceasefire was implemented, Ahmed and his family returned to their home in the north only to find that it had been looted, vandalized, and destroyed by the occupation forces. Support his campaign if you can. I will leave these fundraisers as well as a link to Dr. Al-Arir's book in the description. The book is devastating, though, especially considering the fate of its author. Dr. Rafat was killed by Israel in a targeted assassination in December of 2023. He was killed alongside his brother Salah, with his son Muhammad and his sister Asma and 3 of her children. This came after having over 30 members of his and his wife's family slaughtered by Israel over the course of their lives. What these numbers also fail to communicate is the weight and depth had and will continue to have for generations. To speak only of the children of Gaza, they will forever hold the wounds and trauma caused by Israel's genocide in their minds and hearts. It was reported that when asked, over half of the children in Gaza expressed a desire to die. Many of them already held such wounds, though, of course, but in terms of sheer scale and intensity, what we're seeing now is incomprehensible except to those experiencing it. Throughout these 17 months of genocide, the international community has left the people of Gaza to languish and die. If there's anything we've learned about Israel in the past 100 years, it's that there is no crime they can commit that won't go unpunished, up to and including genocide. In the latest escalation, again, the world has watched this happen and done nothing. And some have, of course, actively made this genocide possible. Most notably, that would be the United States government. The US and the Biden administration is fully complicit in this genocide. They've repeatedly sent billions of dollars in weapons shipments and provided military and diplomatic support. Over 80% of the killing machinery that has been used to slaughter Palestinians in Gaza has been provided by the United States government. They've also provided rhetorical and diplomatic support by whitewashing Israel's crimes against humanity, laundering Israeli atrocity propaganda, and denying and dismissing genocide allegations. That last one should come as no surprise, given that a genocide ruling against Israel does also implicate the United States in the crime of aiding and abetting genocide, since they sent the bombs that made it possible. The ICC is already being urged to investigate Joe Biden and Antony Blinken for their role in perpetrating this very crime. These actions have shown the US to be acting in violation of both domestic and international laws by sending weapons to a regime that is actively and intentionally blocking access to humanitarian aid against a civilian population that they are occupying, and ignoring the arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court against Netanyahu and Gallant. This is just another plot on the long chart of the US and Israel's position as rogue states in the international community. There's a comment I saw on Ethan Klein's video. It read, "I feel like a lot of people can't separate Israelis and the Israeli government, and the same with the other side. Like, you are allowed to hate on the people who actually kill people and not hate the innocent adults and children that are being killed from both sides." This is a popular framing among liberals and liberal outlets, that we should separate the Israeli people from the actions of their government. While there are some examples from the past where this may be true, such as the case of the American public's attitudes towards the end of the Vietnam War, which diverged from their government, the same cannot be said in the case of Israel. The vast majority of the Israeli public supports this genocide. Months into the genocide, polling showed that over 95% of Jews.
Which, by the way, I have actively shown that there are, albeit a very small number, but still a number of Israelis who are themselves anti-Zionist. So to say that about someone like myself is especially ridiculous. That's another reason why this is fucking insane. I've also, of course, talked about this quite a bit as well, in terms of the active championing of the ongoing genocide in Gaza by the Israeli voting public. Having said that, there are still a small number of, I guess, very unique to Israeli society, but still a small number of Israelis who are themselves anti-Zionist. So coming after me with that assertion is even more idiotic.
Jewish Israelis supported the IDF's actions, with a majority of those indicating that the IDF was not using enough force in Gaza. The force in question there being, genocide. They wanted more. It wasn't enough, apparently. 17 months later, and nothing has really changed. Just weeks ago, polling indicated that the Trump administration's plan to facilitate the ethnic cleansing of Gazans was supported by over 80% of Israelis. This headline refers to Israelis as a whole, but that 80% support statistic is actually only the perspective of Jewish Israelis. A majority of Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, or Arab Israelis, as the Israeli government tries to call them, considers this ethnic cleansing plan to be immoral. When it comes to Jewish Israelis, however, that number drops to just 3%. This should come as no surprise given Israel's history. A country that exists on the logic of ethnic supremacy and colonization requires a certain level of dehumanization to keep its inhabitants from collapsing under the weight of the reality of their rotten society. Another way to get a handle on the seemingly ubiquitous genocidal fervor among Israelis is by just talking to them.
How many civilians have been killed in Gaza, from what you know?
Who gives a shit?
Okay, but don't you feel like, for example, children?
Children grow up to be Arabs. I read the numbers last week. My memory died and went to heaven. I don't think children should suffer, but they're always casualties. And since they do a lot of pruervu, that is a natural result.
חפים מפשע נהרגו בעזה.
טוב, אז כנראה שנעצור.
את לא רוצה לענות על זה?
תודה.
אוקיי, אפשר לשאול למה?
כי אני לא חושבת שיש מישהו שהוא חף פשע שם. צר.
אבל ילדים אבל, נגיד.
הילדים מסכנים, אין ספק, אבל הם לא יגדלו להיות ילדים חפים מפשע, לצערי.
Most of the kids there that are getting killed, I never support little children dying,
But
I never want it. But most of them will grow up not only supporting Hamas, which is a crime by itself, but joining them, which is the worst of the worst.
בפשע נהרגו בעזה.
לא, זה גם לא מעניין אותי.
לא? למה?
לא מעניין אותי. אני הייתי עד 7 באוקטובר האמנתי בשלום ובשיח ובדו-שיח. אחרי זה הבנתי שאין לי מי לדבר. כולם שם מחבלים. לצערי הרב.
אבל ילדים, כאילו.
לא, אני אומרת בכנות, לא מעניין אותי.
There is no such thing as Palestinians. They're Arabs who have many countries to flee to and nobody wants them to. But if we do call them Palestinians, their parents use them as human shields to gain sympathy.
saying that with what I assume is the most Long Island accent obviously adds an additional layer to the irony that Palestinians could flee to other Arab nations. Meanwhile, the nation that you are currently inside of the borders of was invented through settler colonialism 76 fucking years ago. And it's very obvious to me that you certainly have somewhere else to go to. They don't.
The natural instinct of a Jewish mother is to protect her child. Palestinian women do not have that.
These people know that they're on camera and that these remarks will be posted on the internet or shared on the mainstream news. This is normal to them. This is normal in their society, which is a testament to the fact that their society is not normal. It's typically bad form to cite street interviews as being some meaningful indicator of widespread attitudes. But again, with Israel, it's just different. Not just because these attitudes align perfectly with the wider Israeli polling data, but also because it's almost impossible to find anyone in Israel saying anything else. The amount of truly anti-Zionist Israelis living in Israel numbers in the hundreds. This figure is according to anti-Zionist Israelis themselves. They are alone.
Everyone around us are completely genocidal maniacs.
I know they're in the hundreds because all 100 of them are in this fucking community.
Everyone around you. And I don't mean it metaphorically. It's not metaphorically. It's literally everybody. It will be your family. It will be your teachers. It will be your colleagues. Everyone around you. So you're alone. Even if we will gather all of those anti-Zionists together from Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Haifa or whatever, it will not be more than, I don't know, 500?
There's no tangible internal opposition within the country. The Israeli left is a myth. This is reflected once more in the openly genocidal sentiment we see on social media from IDF terrorists who have been willingly, gleefully, posting their own war crimes on the internet for everyone to see for...
So much so that the Israeli fucking occupying force had to give out a directive to stop posting your war crimes because it's gonna, you know, it's gonna cause you to get repercussions from foreign nations when you're visiting.
A year and a half.
They go into the homes of Palestinians, and they're often clearly staying there, and they just smash them up, and they film themselves smashing them up. They also delight in going through women's underwear drawers, and this is a sort of recurring obsession. You have to see Israeli soldier videos in the context of the broader output of Israeli society.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. I would press it right now. Give me that button and press it right now.
There you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
There's an Israeli song called This Was My Home. And what they would do is dress up as caricatures of obviously what they perceive Palestinians to be, being sung mockingly to people who no longer have homes. We're not looking at...
There's also Arab face. Aside from blackface, which they also do, they do Arab face too.
Some sort of obscure subculture within Israeli society. This is mainstream Israeli society.
People have been keeping tabs on this. There are a number of archives documenting the names and crimes of these Israeli terrorists. One of the most thorough of these databases was created by a historian, Lee Mordecai. It's called Bearing Witness to the Israel-Gaza War. It is presently over 120 pages long with extremely detailed footnotes. There's that one tweet that's like, you know, hitting translate from Hebrew on Twitter is like discovering a lost page from Mein Kampf. This holds up pretty well. Here, let's try it on this tweet. The survivors of the 2025 Holocaust are proof that every trace of the murderous mutations in Gaza must be erased, from delivery rooms to the last elderly person in Gaza. 100% dead in Gaza. That there is Barashi Kinneret, the host of a mainstream Israeli news channel. One more example that I found particularly striking was the Right to Rape protests. A group of Israeli prison guards were placed under investigation after security camera footage leaked showing them gang raping a Palestinian prisoner. The Israeli public reacted in uproar, not because of what they were alleged to have done, but because they were potentially going to be punished for it. Protests were held outside.
Yeah, they did a pro-rape January 6th.
Of the prison, attended by top Israeli officials. Mainstream Israeli news channels brought on one of the alleged rapist soldiers for interviews, supporting him and his right to kill and rape Palestinian hostages. Again, this wasn't some extremist fluke. It was reflected in broader polling of the Israeli.
Why are we watching this trash? Is that who you just said? Are you okay? Does it hurt your fucking feelings? Dude doesn't know history. This all happened before the murder. Brandon caused the bird flu. I feel like I recognize his name. What is the trash here? Like covering the atrocities that Israel has done. Why are you fucking calling it trash? What's the purpose?
Public. According to a poll taken around that time, 65% of Israeli Jews oppose criminal prosecution for soldiers suspected of raping Palestinian detainees. And 47% of Jewish Israelis answered that Israel does not need to abide by international law and maintain moral values in the war. Simply put, it's a genocidal society, top to bottom. Perhaps the most complicit party to enabling this genocide, aside from the material support of Western governments, is the Western media. As previously mentioned, this support largely takes two forms: the more overt kinds, like spreading misinformation and explicit Israeli state and IDF propaganda, and the other more subtle, yet significantly more frequent and effective, is that of manufacturing consent. Reporting on Palestinians has some clear differences in coverage, language, and framing when compared with other groups. In the first 100 days after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, 262 children were killed. In the first 100 days of Israel's assault on Gaza, more than 10,000 children were killed. The true number is likely much higher, but mentions of child deaths and related terms were 33.4% higher for Ukraine than for Gaza. During this time frame, CNN mentioned child victims of the war 2,446 times for Ukraine versus 2,110 times for Gaza, and MSNBC mentioned child victims of the Ukraine war 1,775 times versus 1,522 times for Gaza. This means that for each child death from Ukraine, children receive the equivalent of 16.1 mentions on air, whereas children in Gaza receive the equivalent of 0.36 mentions. MSNBC did not run a single segment in the first 100 days that focused specifically and exclusively on the plight of children in Gaza. MSNBC ran over a dozen segments focusing specifically on the plight of Ukrainian children during the first 100 days of that conflict. Emotive language was barely ever used to describe the killing of Palestinians. This comes despite the vastly higher death toll over the same period. On CNN and MSNBC, the words war crime and genocide were mentioned more in the context of Ukraine than in the context of Gaza. Ukrainian victims were labeled as subject to war crimes or genocide 1,790 times compared to just 104 mentions for Palestinians. And we still see this now, obviously. During the hostage exchanges as a result of the latest so-called ceasefire, for example, you may notice that Palestinians detained without charges in Israeli jails, of which there are thousands, they are referred to as prisoners, whereas the IDF soldiers, that is, actual militants that were captured by Hamas on October 7th, are referred to as hostages. One of the greatest tweets of all time that I've ever seen described the capture of an IDF terrorist during October 7th as him being kidnapped from a tank. Kidnapped from a tank.
Kidnapped from a tank, dude. Kidnapped from a fucking tank. This is incredible work. New things are happening in linguistics, in the field of language. This poor boy, this poor young boy was kidnapped from a tank. And yes, the person that we banned previously for saying, why are we watching this trash, says that they're Palestinian. It's okay. Stop arguing with that person, okay? I didn't mean to disregard the vid. I just have seen these clips so many times. I guess I shouldn't assume others have. Love how you all think I'm diminishing the suffering of others. Just curious what brought in this particular video, but that's okay. My bad. I'm Palestinian. I would never diminish this at all. Yes, the reason why we're watching this is because it's a new video that came out. Genocide denial and advocacy for genocide takes on many different forms, okay? The obvious forms in mainstream media is something that I've covered quite frequently. Noah Samsen, friend of the show's video, actually features a different side of independent media that also engages in a defense of these sorts of heinous actions. Of course, most of the video, however, given how much the internet and the marketplace is flooded with lies by omission, saying both sides have a lot to both sides have suffered tremendous repercussions and whatnot, because that is what is flooding the marketplace, that the video spends a good deal of time actively, accurately, in great detail explaining a multitude of different war crimes that the Israeli occupying forces engaged in the process of dishing out this genocide on top of the Palestinian civilian population that it holds captive as a belligerent occupier in direct violation of all international rules. Okay? That is the reason why it heavily focuses on the things that Israel is doing, so that people that come into this video thinking, oh, it's another drama video, will actually leave the video with more knowledge. This is incredibly important to do because I suspect that the second half of this video is going to feature how people are failing to mention any number of different things that he just mentioned in an either deliberate attempt to obfuscate or because they're fucking stupid. It's one or the other. Either you are lying by omission because you're a bad person and you're a genocide supporter, or you're just a dumbass.
Kidnapped from a tank. Coverage has been focused almost exclusively on the condition of these IDF quote-unquote hostages, rarely making mention of Israel's contribution to their condition, like how they starve out the population of Gaza, which obviously affects all of the people in Gaza, including the Israeli hostages in Gaza, or the fact that they rain airstrikes on them all day, every day for 16 months straight. Is that good for your health? Is that healthy? The same cannot be said of coverage of the Palestinian hostages. Despite emerging from these Israeli jails with clear evidence of extreme physical abuse, images of the Palestinian hostages are rarely, if ever, shown. The assumption is just granted. It's relied on that they're terrorists, criminals, and whatever else. So whatever happens to them, that's just what happens in jail. The Western media lies in other subtle ways, like burying the lead in stories and deceptively framing headlines. This is especially apparent in coverage of things like ceasefire negotiations. These outlets have consistently framed the lack of agreement to terms as being Hamas's fault, that they won't agree to Israel's terms, but they interestingly decide to use only one definition of the ceasefire definition, that being one which is only temporary, with no guarantees that the genocide will end after these temporary pauses. They're not really ceasefires, but in order to frame Hamas as disagreeing with them, that's what they have to call them. The ceasefire that ended up being agreed upon in January was the exact same ceasefire that Hamas had agreed to over 6 months prior. Israel continually sabotaged these negotiations, but if you read any of these mainstream outlets, you wouldn't know that, not until the very end of these articles, at least. The latest reporting on these negotiations continued this trend of misleading coverage, such as this story from early February. The majority of the article, headline included, frames Hamas as the instigator to a potential ceasefire failure. However, both independent observers and Israeli officials themselves acknowledged that it was actually Israel who had already broken the terms of the ceasefire agreement immediately after it was implemented. To anyone with a brain and eyes, this would be apparent given the evidence we have of these violations, but because these outlets didn't show their readers that and also prioritize the input of party committing genocide, this citation here is crucial for its readers. They need to see this to understand what's happening. But the New York Times waited to mention it until 9 paragraphs in, like basically the end of the article. This is a textbook example of bearing the lead, but it also goes beyond that into just a lie, right? The entire article is framed in precisely the opposite way of what this confirmed fact revealed. If the Times weren't running cover for a genocide, the headline of this article would read, "Israel violates ceasefire, confirmed by Israeli officials." Probably the most insane example of this sort of thing is the following headline, once again from the New York Times. Lebanon's ceasefire appears to hold despite Israeli strike. If Israel struck, they violated the ceasefire. The ceasefire did not hold. Israel violated it. It's just absurd. The genocide is referred to almost exclusively as the Israel-Hamas war. Like the Nazi Holocaust, Israel's genocide in Gaza has been conducted under the pretext of war, but the genocide aspect, of which there is, again, broad consensus has taken place, is omitted from this framing. Every single article that mentions this so-called war should be immediately citing the expert consensus that it really is not just a war, that it's a genocide. That doesn't happen, though. Trump recently made a number of statements explicitly supporting U.S. assistance to the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, including land development by U.S. companies. One tool I found helpful to compare these differences in this sort of coverage is Ground News, who are also the sponsor of today's video. The coverage from right-wing outlets, such as Red State, frames the comments as explicitly positive. Trump and Netanyahu unveiling a bold plan for Gaza and peace. On Ground News, this outlet has a low factuality tag, which means that they often omit key details. Some liberal to left-leaning outlets like New York Magazine, an outlet with a high factuality label indicating they typically rely on well-researched reporting, did explicitly call Trump's proposed plan a case of ethnic cleansing. Other left-leaning outlets centered the extreme nature of his language in the headlines, such as The Intercept, with an article titled "Trump, the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip," or the proposed plan's effect on Palestinians, like Middle East Eye, with their article headlined "We'll own it. Trump wants to make Gaza a holiday hub without Palestinians." Ground News is an app and website that lets you compare media coverage across political biases while calculating each source's reliability so you can see how framing shapes public perception from sources around the world. Without understanding the different biases behind the news you read, you might not realize how skewed the narrative is. Unlike other platforms, Ground News is independent and nonpartisan, so they have no stake in promoting any agenda, just the facts and how those facts are presented. It's not always about how a story is spun, but equally important, as we've seen, is the information that other platforms choose to leave out. Liberal outrage over this story has been almost entirely focused on Trump's comments, but ignores the bigger picture, the fact that it was the Biden administration who made this ethnic cleansing plan possible by facilitating the total annihilation of Gaza, and that it was the Biden administration that proposed this ethnic cleansing plan in the first place. And yet, there's only one source that leads with this crucial piece of context. Ground News made it easy to find this story and have it compared with all the rest. Ground News specifically created their blind spot feed to highlight the stories only picked up by certain politically slanted documented outlets so you can see the world as it is, not through the partisan narratives these outlets want you to. These are just a few of the ways that Ground News helps me research stories, stay informed, and understand the way information is being presented is just as important as the information itself. I highly recommend checking it out. For a limited time, you can get the same all-access Vantage plan I use for 40% off. It's just $5 a month for a platform that actually encourages you to think for yourself. Go to ground.news/Noah or scan this QR code to sign up today. Thanks again to Ground News for supporting the channel. Now let's get back to the video. When Israelis and top Israeli officials participated in the right to rape protests we talked about earlier, protesting the Israeli right to rape and murder Palestinian hostages, these events were summarized by the New York Times as unrest. They were framed around the protests' effect on the party that
just unrest
that was doing the protest. That is, again, the right to rape protest, and not on the fact that Israeli guards raped a Palestinian hostage, it was captured on video, and that the case was clear-cut enough that they actually called for an investigation for once, unlike 99% of previous cases of the IDF abusing, raping, torturing, and murdering Palestinians. In this article, the guards' actions against the Palestinian hostage are described vaguely and passively as just abuse, and it is not revealed until the very end of the article that the abuse took the form of the guards raping the man with an object. The follow-up story on the prosecution of these soldiers uses this same disgusting.
I need you to understand something, by the way. That's called burying the lead. An outlet like the New York Times knows exactly what it's doing when it actually covers the truth, like the kernel of truth at the heart of this argument, all the way in the last fucking paragraph. Just so you understand, that right there is a deliberate attempt to also misinform the public. There's no other type of story. Like, if it's a bit of a annoying cliche to say this, but like, if there was a pro-rape riot in Russia, do you think the New York Times would cover it with those terms? Where Russians in annexed territory were actively raping their Ukrainian prisoners, and then the Russian government was like, oh, in the interest of avoiding war crimes investigations by an international authority, we must use the principle of complementarity as a deflecting mechanism, as a shield, right? Because that was the underlying reason as to why Israel wanted to even prosecute these rapist concentration guards, because they knew that there was a war crime tribunal that was being put together, and in that process, they just wanted to say like, oh, well, we actually prosecuted ourselves, so you can't prosecute us on this, because the ICC only has jurisdiction if the country that they are potentially putting in the legal crosshairs is actively not investigating these issues. That is complementarity. The ICC does not have jurisdiction if the country can maintain its democratic maintaining its aesthetic democratic process, okay? Because then they could just simply say, no, we actually did prosecute ourselves. You're wrong. You don't need to prosecute us. But Israeli society did not allow that to happen either.
Framing. Rape with an object is whitewashed in the headline and most of the article as simply just being abuse. This is yet another case of the framing of false neutrality, as this quote-unquote divide between the Israeli right and the Israeli left in this article doesn't actually exist. In reality, all that divide means is that the Israeli right are pro-rape and murder of Palestinian detainees, and the Israeli left thinks it makes their country look bad. There's no real debate going on here. A personal favorite of mine for its sheer absurdity was an article from the New York Times called "It Can Be Lonely to Have Middle-of-the-Road Opinions on the Middle East," which focused on college students that were seeking space for nuanced perspectives on the Israel-Hamas war. The perspective presented in this article is one-sided. They talk about extremism in student movements, but the only example they give for this point is that of the extremist Palestinian activists. The New York Times calls it a war with no reference to the numerous credible allegations of genocide. It's harder to justify having a conversation about nuanced opinions of genocide, so they just call it a war. There's no nuance in genocide. There's nothing progressive about genocide. This tendency to falsely frame a genocide with neutrality will often slip into outright endorsement. Recall Israel's pager terrorist attack in Lebanon when they detonated over 1,000 pagers rigged with explosive. This was a widespread mass terrorist attack that indiscriminately targeted civilians and left hundreds disfigured, including a number of children.
أول شيء أنا كنت إنه قاعد عم بلعب على التليفون وهي إنه فجرت الساعة 3 إنه قبل ما أنا أحملها عم بلعب على التليفون هيك صارت ترن رنة غريبة أنا إنه قمت حملتها حطيت لي ايرور وسهم إنه عشان أكبس أوكي والضوء صار يغبش على الآخر يعني عشان نقربها على عيوننا أنا قربت عشان شوف شو فيه بس فقعت ما عرفت شيء.
Among those murdered was Fatima Abdullah, a 9-year-old girl. At her funeral, as well as other funerals with large crowds of people, Israel detonated more of these explosives.
Yep. That's terrorism, by the way. There is no, like, I mean, that's the former, there were like former CIA heads that actively came out and were like, this is terrorism. This is going to have devastating consequences for everybody. The fact that we're not doing anything about this is completely and utterly insane. That's what it is. That's the most moral army. And people celebrated this shit. At the time, I couldn't believe it. All these supposed fucking liberal Zionists unironically were celebrating this, saying it's a brilliant tactic. Saying, oh, well, you don't want us to bomb indiscriminately. But when we do terrorism, also, again, which is basically a more complex version of bombing indiscriminately, because you have no notion of who you are bombing when you do this, as evidenced by the children, the child victims, and the many healthcare professionals that were killed in this process. If you know someone like Boner Box or whatever who made jokes about this and tried to defend it, understand that their position on this is not of one of pro-Palestinian emancipation. They're just actively trying to defend Israel to the best of their fucking ability and probably not doing a very good job at it because it's virtually impossible to defend Israel if you have access to all of the information. Do you understand? Bro, are you trying to make up for October 7th? What? Make up for October 7th? Dude, I don't know how to fucking have conversations with people who think that I did October 7 at this point. It's like, dude, you are such a fucking horrifyingly racist monster. You're just like, yo, Hasan, are you trying to make up for October 7? Like, I was there, dude. Like, I did it. Fuck you, dude.
Despite this being a child-killing and maiming indiscriminate terrorist attack in violation of international law, in Western liberal media it was presented as a cool James Bond-style operation. It was described using words like ambitious, sophisticated, and daring.
The Israeli spy agency Mossad launched one of the most daring and sophisticated deceptions in the history of counterintelligence.
An extraordinary act of espionage, an example of Israel's technological prowess. According to the New York Times, the attack restored the aura of Israel's intelligence agencies. Before covering the attack, these outlets always, of course, make sure to mention Hezbollah's U.S. designation as a terrorist organization. Don't worry, guys. They were just terrorists. Nothing to see here. We got the bad guys. They were bad. We are good. Mission accomplished. And of course, as we've touched on a couple times, lying by omission. That's another thing. With every previous example, you see it. The Israeli hostages receive wall-to-wall coverage with no mention of the fact that the majority of the deaths of these hostages were a product of the Israeli military through airstrikes or firing on hostages while they were waving white flags, or that on October 7th, Israel issued the Hannibal Directive, killing likely many hundreds of its own civilians as a matter of official policy. One of the really effective propaganda strategies that results from these lies by omissions comes in the case of genocide allegations. Western outlets rarely, if ever, actually mention the numerous allegations of genocide levied against Israel. The few times that they do, they're often brief, unspecific, and accompanied with equivocation or lengthy citations of Israel's defense against the allegations. When the New York Times covered the Amnesty International genocide report, the subheading immediately backtracks into running cover for Israel. Israel rejected the charge, the first of its kind by a major human rights organization, saying it was based on lies. The Times went on to spend more of the article sharing the IDF's defense against the allegations than any of the findings from the actual report. Amnesty International gave us 300 pages of facts about genocide. Israel says that they're just lies. I guess we'll never know what happened here. That's not journalism, that's propaganda. When Human Rights Watch released their report accusing Israel of committing crimes against humanity and genocide through its deliberate deprivation of access to clean drinking water, readers of the New York Times wouldn't have heard about that because the New York Times just didn't report it. That's one of the top human rights organizations in the world, accusing the #1 ally of the most powerful country in the world of the crime of all crimes. And they just forgot? No, they didn't forget. The editorial staff at the New York Times knows that they've helped this. They know that they are complicit in this. So any chance they get to just sort of forget to mention something as consequential as a genocide allegation from the leading human rights group in the world, they'll do it. Of course they will. This tracks with the BBC's repeated genocide denial, evident in repeated instances of reporters condemning or correcting guests for using the word genocide to describe Israel's actions in Gaza.
Israel would deny that a genocide is taking place, saying that it is defending its right to exist. Its very existence, indeed, they would say, is under threat. So there are obviously two sides to this.
This whole issue of right of self-determination.
Yeah, you know who else would say that? Nazi Germany. And they did. That's precisely what Nazi Germany also did, you know, while they were doing the Holocaust. That's what they were saying, was that they were restoring the glory of creating a homeland for the folkish Germans. It was complete and utter bullshit then, and it's complete and utter bullshit now when Israel says it while they're doing a genocide.
Self-defense has allowed Israel to inflict the mass murder and mass destruction, what the ICJ now describe as plausible genocide. This is not an act of
you know what I'm going to have to say. I'm going to say Israel denies that. They say that they were in pursuit of Hamas terrorists who hid behind their own people.
Like, what a fucking silly, cowardly way to get out of this conversation. I'm going to have to say it. I'm sorry. Oh, got it. Okay. Sick.
This is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
We have, that word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only, that they don't target civilians.
Well, that's simply not the truth, unfortunately.
Planned, military incursions.
Yes, but it's not the truth, unfortunately.
Civilians are dying.
Civilians are dying, and the way that the bombs are getting dropped, I don't believe are in a targeted way. Nothing from what I'm hearing on the ground suggests that the bombs have been dropped in a targeted way. Our social media manager, all 5 houses around him got blown up. They estimate 100 people were killed in them. Yesterday, his house was the last one remaining in the neighborhood. They leveled an entire neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy.
And I do need to make that qualification, of course, that that it is always denied by the Israelis that genocide is taking place. They say these are strategic planned strikes in Gaza and that they are targeting the militant group Hamas.
But I'm here to let the world know that that's not the case.
Kareem, you've been able to have your say. This is
you,
what the Israelis will always say in response to that.
This effort to whitewash and run cover for the genocide has been intentional, of course, and we have the proof. It's been confirmed with direct evidence and testimony, with internal newsroom memos from not only the BBC, but the New York Times as well. And the last thing to talk about is just atrocity propaganda. One of the primary justifications for the genocide in Gaza is that members of Hamas are not just militants, but that they are monsters, pure evil motivated by nothing more than the sadistic hatred of Jews. This narrative has been fueled by...
This, by the way, is a classic colonial propaganda tool. Okay? Wherever a colonial power has interest in domination, they will say their enemies are barbaric monsters who do not value human life. While they engage in atrocities that are infinitely more barbaric than anything they claim their enemies are doing. That is precisely what Israel did with the rape, with the war porn and the atrocity narratives that they greatly highlighted. There were atrocities that took place on October 7, make no mistake, but the claim, without any evidence whatsoever, that the Hamas were rapist savages that were simply interested in kidnapping people exclusively because of anti-Semitic purpose or to do rapes to them. No evidence whatsoever has come out. That was deliberate. That right there was 100%. That right there, atrocity propaganda, specifically the 40 beheaded babies. The fact that Joe Biden came out and said that he saw personally a beheaded child, that he months later continued and said that, along with the lies, and said that he knew that babies were lit on fire with kerosene. Bullshit. The only evidence for sexual assault came from one victim, And that was not on October 7. It was a hostage. That's it. And it's completely unacceptable. It is completely unacceptable that that happened. Okay? Make no mistake. Having said that, this does not justify genocide. A statement that I mentioned time and time again. If you think that rape, even if rapes occurred like by the dozens, by the thousands, if you think that it's appropriate to genocide an entire population for that, you are a fucking monster. This is not how you deal with acts of violence against victims. Okay? This is precisely the reason why I don't advocate to nuke Israel, despite the fact that they have been raping Palestinians to death in concentration camps. That would be fucking insane if I advocated for that. So ask people where they're getting this information from when they say mass rapes took place, mass rapes in the hands of Hamas took place. Where is this information coming from? Because the reality of the matter is Israel refused to cooperate with international auditors and international investigators after October 7. They refused. They refused to offer justice to the victims of October 7. Just so you understand, that's what's so fucking annoying about this. There was never any evidence whatsoever that there was purposefully directed mass rapes that were directed by Hamas. Not even a fraction. There were no 40 beheaded babies. There were no babies placed in ovens. None of that. But they kept going with it over and over and over again. And the reason for why they did that is the exact same reason why during the segregation era in the Jim Crow South, white people would routinely lie about black people also running around and doing rape. There is a million examples of this. What was so gross about Ethan's disgusting Hasbara video was also him clipping something. Well, he didn't do it himself. He got it from fucking Destiny. Let's be real. It's the same fucking 1p video that we've seen a million times over that even Richie Torres posted about. It was a conversation. It was a debate that I was having with someone saying, Hasan, why don't you deny the rapes? At the time, I was telling him that the reason why I don't deny the likelihood of rapes happening is because sexual in conflict like this, and also on top of that, the fact that once the Gaza wall came down, there were criminal elements that also infiltrated Israel proper. So I'm not going to offhandedly and immediately discount rapes potentially occurring in that situation. It is likely that it happened. Having said that, however, there was no evidence and there has yet to be any singular hard evidence of rapes taking place on October 7. Here's the sexual assaults are a routine part of. Here is the video that they cynically use too. Atrocities. Or no, this isn't the video. There's another one. There's another one that they use. And what's so disgusting about it is that I then follow up by saying that even if there were rapes that took place, it does not change the dynamic for me one bit, because I don't think genocide is appropriate as a retaliation. That is psychotic. If your argument is that genocide is appropriate because hypothetical rapes occurred, or even if hard evidence exists and rapes occurred on this day by the thousands, if you think that genocide is appropriate as a retaliation to that, you are a fucking psychopath. That's it. You are a Nazi. It's an insane Nazi argument. A lot of people cannot comprehend that a captive civilian population is not a monolithic force. Okay? This is the exact same principle behind criminals. Undocumented migrants are doing crimes. And then people turning around and saying, that's why we have to do mass deportation. You think that 20 million people, your numbers, not mine, 20 million people coming from all different parts of the world are all actually a parasitic force here to do violent rapes? Are you out of your fucking mind? It's just pure virile hatred. It's racism. That's it. What's obviously crazy is that in the past, Ethan actually understood my position. There's videos of him before making the content puke where he actually agrees with my position. He understands what I'm saying, exactly what I'm saying. But that didn't stop him from using it cynically in his video. Now, the question in that process is, was he being bad faith or is he a fucking moron? Why not both? During war, it can happen, and it has happened time and time again, which is why there is a likelihood that it could have happened on October 7th. This is a position that I've maintained since October 7th. There were plenty of atrocities that occurred on October 7th, okay, that are akin to acts of terror, because on October 7th, it wasn't just... There is no evidence of rapes happening. Is that maybe it happened, but there's still no evidence? Like, what is related for that disclaimer still? No, I am saying that there is, at this stage, no evidence. No evidence whatsoever. And the only evidence was secondhand, third-hand fucking accounts that, guess what, were immediately undermined by the hard data. The clip that they always use out of context is this one, none of which justifies Israel's actions. So it doesn't even matter. None of this justifies that Palestinians have a right to dignity, a right to emancipation, a right to live fucking free lives, free from... He now says that saying Hosber is an anti-Semitism dog whistle because it's propaganda in Hebrew. Yeah, I mean, he's a fucking moron, dude. I just stop telling me what Ethan is saying. Yes, he's a... It's no different than telling me what Asmongold's opinion is, okay? Yeah, he's a fucking stupid person. I don't know what to tell you. He's desperate to, like, hold on to anything. Michael fucking Rappaport ass. Okay, that's it. There's no redeemable quality at that point. Newsflash, fork found in the kitchen.
Stories of horrors that supposedly took place on October 7th. Hamas burned babies in ovens.
They burnt babies alive.
They put children and burned them to death.
They cut the breasts off of women.
400 women shot in the genitals, their breasts cut off as terrorists played with their bloody breasts like a football.
They cut...
Yeah, and there's videos of me, like, laughing at that shit or other versions of this. And people will cynically use that as a way to be like, Hasan laughs at sexual assault. No, I'm laughing at the fucking insane propaganda that this monster is fantasizing about that very clearly did not fucking happen. Okay? That's it. Because what he's doing, what Rabbi Shmuley is doing there in the background of an ongoing genocide is imagining psychotic things, okay, hallucinating things that didn't happen, and then using that hallucination, getting mad about his own hallucination, getting mad at his own imagination to justify fucking insane.
Cut off the breasts of women and throw them around.
They beheaded 40 babies.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
They behead children.
They cut the fetus out of the womb of a pregnant woman. They committed a campaign of systematized mass rape.
There is no justification for collective rape.
What happened on October 7th was mass, systematic, planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
All of these claims are false, complete fabrications, full stop. No credible evidence has been provided for any of them. Many were shown to be deliberately fabricated, and despite this, they were spread far and wide and ultimately used as rhetorical justification to continue the genocidal onslaught in Gaza. The first major place this narrative broke was Screams Without Words, a front-page New York Times story in late December of 2023. This story came as Israel's actions in Gaza were starting to receive widespread condemnation from the international community. The story was thoroughly debunked. The person who wrote it discredited as being a genocidal Zionist with no history of reporting and self-admitting that the New York Times pushed for this story to come to the public despite the lack of credible evidence. The New York Times podcast, The Daily, shelved the episode due to a lack of credible evidence, but the New York Times never retracted the story, which is because they had no real pressure to do so. The false narrative had already prevailed, and that narrative was consistent with the status quo of the American empire, for whom they are running cover. In July of last year, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated some of these lies in front of Congress. He received a standing ovation. 3 weeks later, the White House approved a $20 billion military aid package to Israel. They explicitly cited Netanyahu's visit as one of their motivations for doing so. Atrocity propaganda has consequences. So with that context out of the way about the Gaza genocide and its support from the West and within Israel, the broader media system that allowed it to happen, let's now return to Ethan's video. In the content nuke, you can find just about every type of what we just looked at in terms of manufacturing consent. Ethan spreads atrocity propaganda. He shares the Hamas mass rape hoax, the same hoax that was used by the Western.
Yeah, not only does he do that, but then he also he's calling you a terrorist on live again. Yeah, dude. None of that is going to make people look at him like a fucking normal human being, okay? Everyone can see what the fuck is going on. People in his immediate circle can see what the fuck is going on. His fan base can ask themselves over and over again, why is it that we have the most unlikely allies? Why is it that like it's people like Keemstar or Joey Salads or the Quartering that's defending Ethan? Why is no one else defending Ethan? Why are no liberal progressives defending Ethan? On that position, at that point, if you are a member of his audience, okay, you have two options: to reconsider what Ethan is saying thus far and potentially realize that maybe, just fucking maybe, he's been lying to you, okay, and everyone else can see it, and even if they don't say anything about it, that's because they're worried about the fucking fan base coming after them, okay, in vicious ways. Or maybe you're just right-wing now, and you're going to be right-wing, okay? Yeah. Ethan Klein is promoting Joey Salads wore a Nazi armband to a Trump rally, claiming it was a prank, and Quartering defends Hitler. Ethan Klein wants to deplatform pro-Palestinians who are not anti-Semitic on the basis of being anti-Semitic, falsely claiming that they're anti-Semitic, while simultaneously fucking hyping up actual anti-Semites. And at no point does anybody go in his fan base go, hold up. Why is it that it's like Asmongold, Destiny, Dan Saltman, Destiny's second in command, Elon Musk, all of these people that are seemingly Keemstar? Why is it that it is people like this that are defending Ethan Klein? Perhaps we might be on the wrong side of this. There's never been a fucking moment where I've defended the likes of the obvious Holocaust denier, anti-Semite, what's his face from Fresh and Fit, the federal agent one, okay? I'm not running around cozying up to fucking dipshits like this because I think it's heinous. I think it's heinous to fucking be an anti-Semite and a Holocaust denier. I think it's disgusting. You have an agenda. Your agenda is to undermine Jewish people, make Jewish people feel less safe. And you're using a genocide as a fucking backdrop to this. It is psychotic. Ethan Klein allies are Elon Musk, Keemstar, Asmongold, Destiny, The Quartering, the ADL, Tim Pool, Ian Miles Chong, Brianna Wu, Libs of TikTok, Sneeko, XUC, Richie Torres, Nelk Boys, Dan Saltman, Drew Pavlov, Lolly VTubers, Lonerbox, Steiny, Joey Salas, Daniel Silva, Yoav Gallant, Sloptubers, Mudahar, Willie Mac Show, Nicholas DeOrio. At some point, you gotta be like, wait a minute, what the fuck's going on here? What the fuck is happening? And this is not for Ethan. He obviously is not going to recognize it. But for members of his audience, like, I know at a certain point, you got to be asking yourself, like, why the fuck is it that all of the worst villains are the only people that are speaking out in defense of Ethan's, like, insane defense of Israel and his constant fucking smears against pro-Palestinian content creators? Why is it?
Media, the US government, and the Israeli government to justify a genocide. He cites the same sources that these parties cite when they go on stage to legitimize more military killing machinery shipments to Israel.
And October 7, last year, Hamas committed horrific acts of sexual violence. Cheryl, I thank you for all your work to bring to light the horrors of this issue and for your film about what happened on October 7.
In his video, Ethan spreads overt misinformation, just straight up lies about Hezbollah and Ansar Allah or the...
Yeah, he said that every single person that died in the fucking civil war in Syria was through bombing campaigns that Hezbollah had, implying that Hezbollah actually had fucking like fighter jets that were dropping bombs on Syria. Like they killed everybody in Syria. That was all Hezbollah. What a psychotic, like what, you didn't even scratch the surface. Like you didn't even dignify your fucking audience with like basic information. That's insane. Like how do you put that out there after months and months of like putting together a fucking video? He did it today too, and AB fact checked them. AB disputed Ethan Klein's claim that Hezbollah has killed far more Muslims than the IDF. Ethan won't believe it. He claims he's done extensive research and Hezbollah killed 500,000 Syrians.
I'm not trying to have a back and forth, but I think it's fair to say that IDF has definitely killed more
than Hezbollah.
I mean, if you want to
hold on. You think the IDF killed more Muslims than Hezbollah?
Are you talking about who you think is responsible, or just killed in general?
As a group.
I thought you said.
I said Hezbollah has killed a shit more load of Arabs than IDF has. You're saying that's not true?
Yes, it's not true. It is false. It is objectively a falsehood. What the fuck are you saying? Why is nobody in his fucking audience going, yeah, man, I don't think that's correct, actually? Like, is no one Googling anything at this point? What the fuck is happening?
Because Hezbollah is credited with about 500,000 deaths.
Time without an OVO. All the lies of mass sexual abuse have the effect of undermining real testimonies like the one Amit Susana gave last year, let alone thousands of Palestinian testimonies from the horrific Israeli prison system. It's the colonial hierarchy of information. The first storytellers are always the colonizing military. Then defectors from the power are heard, i.e. BTS local call. At the very bottom of the list are native inhabitants who by design are already under the rubble. Speaking of the one of the 12 anti-Zionist Israeli Jews in the chat, Time without an OVO is back. We were just talking about the number of anti-Zionist Jews in Israel. Anyway, yeah, anti-Zionist Jewish Israelis living in Israel, not OVO. Time without an OWO.
In Syria.
Let's ask our friend ChatGPT.
I've looked into this pretty extensively. Okay. Hezbollah is significantly.
Yeah. No, totally.
Are you reading something contradictory, AB?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT says, overall, due to the scale of frequency of IDF operations over decades, they have likely caused more Muslim casualties than...
Like, what are we talking about? It's not even a likelihood. What do they mean? You can't attribute the entirety of the death toll of the Syrian civil war to fucking Hezbollah. What the hell? What are you talking about? They had Russian air forces bombing fucking cities, dude. What are you talking about? You think Hezbollah has fucking airplanes? If Hezbollah had airplanes, I doubt they would be fucking using it in Syria. They would be using it in Tel Aviv, okay? Tel Aviv. The fuck?
Hezbollah.
No shot. Hold on. What was the question you asked it?
Hezbollah versus IDF, who has killed more Muslims?
Ask if it's including the Syrian civil war. I mean, that makes no sense. I've literally fact-checked this 1,000,000 times.
No, he hasn't. There is 0% chance he's fact-checked this. As a matter of fact, people have fact-checked his statement. People have fact-checked his statement, like Bad Empanada fact-checked his statement. There is 0% chance that he has not encountered a single fucking person, even on accident. I have fact-checked his statements. I fact-checked his statements while he was covering me live, as a matter of fact. So there is no world in which he is completely oblivious to this reality, okay? There is no way. He has to be fucking omitting this detail deliberately.
I feel like.
How many? They both suck. They're both fucking terrible.
No, what do you mean? They both suck is like such a fucking cop-out. Ethan made a erroneous claim. He made a ridiculous claim. He said Hezbollah has killed more Muslims than the IDF. This claim is untrue. It is categorically untrue. Okay? You can't turn around and be like, oh, both sides are pretty shitty, I think. That's ridiculous. What the fuck?
That's...
Yep.
How many
that's that, you know?
Killing is horrible.
It doesn't really matter.
What do you mean it doesn't matter? Of course it fucking matters. You can't say it doesn't matter. Yeah, once you realize that you're wrong, you're like, oh, okay. He used this table as evidence in his video, and literally at the top, it says all the following totals include civilians, rebels, and government forces at the top. Ridiculous. How is anybody not reading this if they're progressive? How is anybody not seeing the real problem is black on black violence that nobody talks about? Because that's what he's doing here. He's literally going, nobody talks about black on black violence, by the way. Like, that's it. That's what he's doing. But instead, he's like, oh, but it's Muslim on Muslim violence. There's a real fucking problem here. Oh, my God.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean...
I mean, if we trust ChatGPT on this one, I don't know. It says that since 1984 IDF, the number ranges from approximately 91,000.
It's funny they use ChatGPT as a true source. If they just type, is Hasan Piker anti-Semitic? ChatGPT says, I'm not aware of any credible evidence or consensus among reputable sources indicating that Hasan Piker is anti-Semitic. In Piker's case, he has consistently repudiated anti-Semitism and hate speech in general. Yeah. Hezbollah involvement in the civil war has been substantial since the beginning of the armed insurgency phase. God, the fucking Syrian civil war is so insane in terms of like the belligerence. Jesus Christ. It's wild because like with the exception of a couple militancies, almost all of it is either directly or indirectly funded by the United States of America, either by way of Turkey and NATO training and NATO forces, or directly funded by America, by the CIA. He checked it a million times. He knows Hasan is anti-Semitic. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Let me finish this fucking video. How does this end?
To over 115.
Well, listen. Yeah, and Hezbollah in Syria alone killed double that much.
What? Oh, did he fucking button? No.
Well, listen. Yeah, and
approximately 91,000 to over 115.
Hezbollah in Syria killed double the amount of 91,000, as in 180,000, 182,000 minimum. He's saying that Hezbollah killed 182,000 people in Syria. Minimum. Holy fuck. Oh. What Ethan means by research and fact-checking is that he saw the false talking point on Destiny subreddit, then took a screenshot of the wiki page on the Syrian civil war. This invested in a subject he knows nothing about. You'd think if you're going to spend this much time talking about something, then you would at least do some basic research. Ethan has been fact-checked many times on this false understanding of the Syrian civil war casualties, but he still very confidently repeats this nonsense. It's so important. It is also important to note that for many who don't know, there were many factions fighting in Syria, and many were part of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or adjacent groups. Some of the groups Hezbollah fought are currently carrying out mass killings of minorities with nobody to defend them. Ugh. Jesus Christ, dude. Also, even if the argument is true, by the way, which it obviously isn't, but even if it was true, it still doesn't justify Israel doing a genocide in Gaza. That's what's so fucking insane about the false argument that he's presenting. The only way that these arguments actually work is if your fucking brain is broken by war on terrorism and the remnants of war on terrorism, Islamophobic propaganda. That's it. You look at a situation and you're like, well, they're all the same, right? Like, I know, because he literally goes, well, they're bad guys. They're terrorists. They're bad guys. Everyone's a bad guy. Hasan likes bad guys. It's Keemstar level political commentary. It's so fucking stupid.
In order to delegitimize their struggle against Israel's genocide. He cites baseless claims from Saudi state propaganda outlets to attack the Houthis. He also cites a documentary about Ansar Allah, which he uses as proof of the claim that they brought back slavery, when the documentary wasn't even about the Houthis. It was about the Yemeni government before the Houthi takeover. He spreads long debunked Nakba denialist talking points that have been used for decades to legitimize Israeli colonization of Palestine.
Yeah, that was what fucking pissed me off. Like, that was one of the most annoying and very obvious falsehoods that he just slammed in the middle of that. 1 million Jews were forcibly and systematically expelled from surrounding Arab regions. So technically more Jews were harmed during the Nakba is a fucking insane thing to say. None of those countries are Palestinian. Those aren't Palestinians. Okay? It wasn't Palestinians that did that to them. Okay? And even then, you're also wrong on the facts of that situation as well. They weren't systematically expelled in the same way that Plan Dalit was executed by the initial Zionist brigades. Oof.
Ethan cites sources that contradict his own claims directly, such as the UN report he claims proves the Hamas mass rapes allegation.
There's a UN report that concludes it happened,
which the report itself denies. He spends 20 minutes in the video smearing a 19-year-old survivor of the US-backed Saudi genocide in Yemen as a terrorist with zero credible evidence. He makes a number of transparently false anti-Semitism accusations, like his claim that Israel's ban on new account signups from Israel was anti-Semitic.
Around the end of the year, when people started talking about anti-Semitism on Twitch, Dan Saltman discovered this.
Yeah, also, how was he not embarrassed to fucking post about Dan Saltman and his goddamn content nuke? Like, that's the other side of this. This is Destiny's fucking co-host. Like, he literally took He most likely deleted a lot of Destiny mentions from his content nuke. I suspect that's why fucking another week after it came out that Destiny was filming people, sometimes with consent and sometimes without consent, when he was engaging in sexual acts with them, and then unconsensually distributing that pornographic material to other people that he was trying to fuck, which is a gross thing that he was doing. Okay? This is his co-host, who has also been actively doxing former members of their community that have been calling out Destiny, and you fucking posted him on your content nuke. Like, you gave him props. It's crazy. Well, I guess you had to give props to the guys a little bit, considering you fucking plagiarized their whole operation, their smear operation.
The Israel ban, when he was sent the code proving the block happened.
In reality,
it literally says right here, disabling signups by email from Palestine and Israel IP addresses. Like, it says Palestine and Israel right here in his own fucking
the
video.
ban also affected millions of non-Jews living in Israel and Palestinians in...
And yes, it's not that Israelis were... Or specifically, because he says this is anti-Semitic because Jews were being stopped from signing up. No, they forgot to fucking turn on email signups from Palestine and Israel. They use the same ISPs. Okay? Just for the record, just so people understand. People can still sign up on their fucking phones. And Dan Saltman literally lied. Bloomberg reported on Dan Saltman lying about this. He sent tens of thousands of botted emails to every single advertiser, leaving him legally liable, if Twitch wanted to do so, legally liable for slander, for operating a mass brigading, a fairly sophisticated mass brigading and slanderous operation where they basically lied to every single news outlet that would entertain what they had to say, which no one did, obviously. And the only one that actually entertained it was Bloomberg to cover it and be like, this is fucking ridiculous. But they lied. They said falsely, which they recognize after the fact. There's video evidence of this as well, where Twitch had purposefully blocked Israelis or suspended Israeli accounts, blocked them from joining the platform.
Palestine, as shown in the evidence he himself cites. The IP ban went into effect in both. Like all these Western liberal outlets.
Like, there's a video of him. Where is it? Someone sent me the fucking clip. There's a video of Dan Saltman and Destiny talking side by side about how, like, the Bloomberg reporting. Also, the fact that he has me playing Marvel Rivals in the background is so funny. It's just so obsessed. It's so fucking obsessed. It's so wrong. I just don't. I don't know. It's just it's frustrating. Oh, here. Yeah, this is the one. Here.
So I sent this to the editor, and I said this was incorrect, and that I've never said this.
Okay. You're sure that your emails don't have the...
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
The emails accused Twitch of suspending all Israeli accounts for a year, a claim the company debunked on a recent post on X. Dan claims he never said that. Then they went back and realized that tens of thousands of emails to advertisers, to the dumbasses like fucking Richie Torres and everybody else, that Twitch had suspended all Israeli accounts for a year. This was a lie. Here is Dan Saltman and Destiny figuring out that it was a lie. Let's take a look.
You can go to the site and click the button. It's been the same. Why would I ever say that they suspended Israeli users? I know that's not true. No one would ever say that. So what they're saying right here, I feel like it's just slander, right? Well, no, libel. Libel is written. I've never said this, and they're saying that I have said this. You're furiously tapping over there.
I'm seeing that. I'm just checking the email. Double checking.
I did. Listen, I sent an email to the editor, and I said I demanded a retraction or a correction on it. If they don't, fuck it. I will sue them.
Oh, no, wait, hold on.
What's that? Chicken Big Mac.
Forget it. Delete this part of the VOD.
Okay. Why?
Because it's... Your fucking dumb email does say that.
No way.
Even more troubling, Twitch previously suspended all Israeli accounts for a year without public acknowledgement or explanation.
Suspended creation. All right, well, never mind then.
The level of research that these guys put into their slander operations are obviously minimal, right? They're not particularly intelligent people. They have created a sophisticated network of mass slander, mass botting, things of that nature. But what is really interesting about it is that you don't have to have a particularly sophisticated or a real interest in like actually manipulating the truth in a way that suits your purpose. You can just fucking straight up lie like this, okay? And media outlets will go long and hard to try and verify those claims, find out that they're not correct at all. And even after that, other fucking morons like Ethan will still defend people like Dan Saltman in their fucking content nuke and use idiotic things that they posted in the fucking content nuke. The worst part is people think this is research and get 1-2 punch when Asman and other people spread it as if it's true. Exactly. Is he defending him or using a point he made? He's literally handing it to him right here. He's saying the initial investigation made by Dan Saltman. If your primary researcher that you're using as a primary source is actively and openly fucking lying about this issue, then they're not a credible source. Surely Asmongold will watch this video. Yeah, okay. I will gift 500 gifted subs in Asmongold's chat if he sits through this entire video. He doesn't need the money, obviously, but that's how much I know he will never fucking in a million years watch this. I'm betting 500 gifted subs in Asmongold's chat that he will never watch the YouTubers who back the genocide. It goes against his previous fucking claims. He hinted he's going to sue Noah for this. Yeah, good luck. Or litigation. That's the other sad state of affairs here. He like, his claim to fame was, you know, having a landmark decision that set the precedent for fucking fair use and protection for content creators. And now he is actively trying to undermine all that goodwill that he had cultivated years prior by trying to sue anyone and everyone for being like, dude, what you're saying is wrong. It's so weird. It's such a fucking weird thing to do.
In both. Like all these Western liberal outlets, Ethan just takes the State Department line of thinking when it comes to terrorism, which his video is ostensibly a crusade against. By his own definition of terrorism, both the US and Israel are the largest terrorist organizations in the world. Given their history of killing millions of innocent civilians across the globe, his focus is not on them, though, rather the groups that they consider to be terrorists, aka, you know, the bad guys. He actually uses those exact words. He says they're the bad guys.
They are a designated terrorist group by the US, by the EU. These guys are clearly the bad guys.
The entire video is kind of a lie by omission, simply because of everything we just went over. How none of it is a factor, how none of the people viewing the video that are unfamiliar with what's happening would ever come away with his video knowing the full picture, knowing some of the very...
His lawyer telling him about Article 230 and him throwing a fit like a child was quite edifying. Has Ethan always been like this, or has he gotten more radical throughout the war and backlash he's received for his hot takes? I think... I don't know. I'm not super familiar with Ethan's work beyond like the couple things before Leftovers. And during Leftovers, I know that he like hated Ryan Kavanaugh or whatever. And I'm sure, I mean, and I think like a lot of the people that he shit on were not very good people. And perhaps that is the reason why, even if he went above and beyond and certainly was like engaging in some kind of fucking harassment campaign, like I didn't even think about it because, you know, he's going after like a fucking billionaire like Ryan Kavanaugh. Or, you know, people like Keemstar and shit like that. And then, obviously, when he turned his crosshairs over to people that were pro-Palestinian, I started realizing that he was just using such underhanded tactics. I can't speak on whether or not he was using underhanded tactics against those other people, and I'm not going to say that. But goddamn, dude. It is very obvious that he's just like actively disinterested in the truth. He avoids it like the fucking plague. Two things he avoids like the plague are obviously accountability, like any sort of open-mindedness to like maybe what I'm saying is the reason why people were correctly pegging me as a Zionist, and also fucking avoiding the truth.
very valid reasons why someone like Hasan might be critical of Israeli atrocity propaganda, or might support groups like the Houthis for their heroic actions in the Red Sea against a genocidal regime. The biggest issue, I think, is that Ethan manages to do all of this while still calling himself a stalwart ally to the Palestinians.
Yeah, that part is fucking also gross.
And I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
This is what makes liberal Zionism so insidious. He is using humanistic appeals to things like peace and safety, but doing so in a way that distracts from the actual source of the problem. The problem is Zionism and the genocidal Israeli state. That is what's causing these problems. And people that might otherwise be able to understand if presented with the facts of the situation are simply led astray by people like Ethan, where a more right-wing Zionist...
Yeah, he's a stalwart supporter of Palestinians. That's why almost all of his commentary on the issue, okay, revolves around doing the shittiest forms of liberal Zionist propaganda at the behest of Israel, talking about how it's a multicultural society and yada, yada, yada. And also simultaneously fucking attacking every single pro-Palestinian voice he can. Every single one. Ethan Klein gets to dictate how you protest against Israel. Nobody else, okay? If you are even marginally different in your opinion than Ethan Klein, when you are defending Palestinians, you are a rabid anti-Semite. What a ridiculous worldview to craft around. Like, you have to unironically be super disinterested in politics across the board to look at what he's saying and go, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Might put off the average liberal with extremist claims and overtly genocidal language. A liberal Zionist draws you in with the facade of empathy. He wants to appear empathetic, as if he cares for these people, as if he doesn't ascribe to a genocidal ideology. So, in order to do that, he has to lie, and roping in otherwise progressive people into a death cult. Aside from this video being a nonsensical genocidal propaganda piece, it's also entirely unoriginal. The video is a culmination of a months-long campaign against Hasan and all these other creators and Twitch, the company, to smear them as terrorists and anti-Semites and get people, in trouble. The campaign began as a response to
What is this? Ethan Klein thinks Hasbara... Wait. Sorry, Matt Lieb and Daniel Mate. I thought your podcast about dismantling Israeli propaganda used to justify genocide, but scholar of anti-Semitism Ethan Klein has informed me that Bat Hasbara is code for lying Jews and you're just interested in shitting on Israelis. Okay, big mistake from Ethan is going after the likes of Matt Lieb. You want to know why? Because his audience obviously is not very well educated. So when he starts talking about how these Jews are also anti-Semitic, his audience that is not very educated and doesn't fully understand everything is probably going to be like, wait a minute, what? You're saying now Jews are also, these aren't Arabs, okay? These aren't Muslims. Whoa, hold on. These are other Jewish people that you're now calling anti-Semitic.
Here is, I just want to show you the beginning of this. By the way, Bad Hasbara, he has a podcast where he just solely shits on Israelis. That's what Bad Hasbara is. It's like a meme. Hasbara in Hebrew means propaganda. And it's like a weird slur that people started picking up, calling just like Hasbara means like a lying Jew.
Ethan has said twice now that he wants Matt Lieb fired from Good Mythical Morning over Bad Hasbara. Ethan loves Good Mythical Morning, so he's just butthurt. Matt don't like him. A slur. Hasbara is a slur. It quite literally is actively defined by the Israeli state as what they want people in the Western world to do, specifically Zionist Jews in the Western world to do. This is not a fucking conspiracy. This is just like a part of the Western propaganda that Israel utilizes. Everything's a fucking slur, man. Holy shit. Guy with a 40+ clip N-word compilation. Hasbara is a slur. Yeah. Dude, he is unironically turning into Destiny. It's so funny. Because another guy who has a fucking... I assume Destiny probably has a 8-minute long N-word compilation as well. Maybe not as long as Ethan's. I think Ethan's is 8 minutes long. Destiny also loved inventing slurs like, oh, Gusano is a slur, or cracker is the real slur. Like, oh my lord. Yeah, it's actually a slur. Good stuff.
The suspension of the live streamer Asmongold. Asmongold made some comments that explicitly justified Israel's genocide of Palestine.
Holy fuck, this has 37,000 likes. I swear to fucking God, I can see Hasan in my carpet. Ethan Klein POV. How the fuck does this have 37,000 likes? Oh my God. This is supposed to be like a fucking incredibly niche joke. The fact that this has 37,000 likes means that this is not a niche joke at all. Like, everyone is aware of the delusions. Taylor Lorenz posted it on Instagram. I'm moots with Simon. They're freaking out about it. That's funny. Wait, I don't see it. I don't see it either. I think it's just like there's like a little bit of a pattern here. But this means is broken containment. And he thinks people are on his side. I don't think he thinks people are on his side. I think he also secretly recognizes that the people that are on his side are people that he shit on for most of his career. And that probably hurts his feelings even more. That's why he actively lashes out against like people who are not sufficiently pro Ethan. Yeah, he recognizes that his mania is something that most people are trying to avoid. If he has such firmly held convictions and is armed to the fucking gills with knowledge on this issue, he shouldn't cowardly run away from debating me on this matter. It's very odd that he does. It's very, very odd. He should have an open and shut fucking case. And yet, you know, instead, he just keeps stubbing his toe and being like, Hasan is responsible for this.
And he's in Gaza.
I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. They come from an inferior culture. I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care. I don't support them.
Following his suspension for these comments, a community of large content creators, most notably the live streamer Destiny, along with his fan base, rushed to Asmongold's defense, whitewashing and justifying his comments.
Meanwhile, Asmongold gets a 15-day ban for having a spicy take on the war.
So you have someone like Asmongold who breathes the wrong direction, says the wrong thing, and instantly gets banned.
In this situation, one could, if they were to extend the charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islam.
Yeah, why do these guys always extend the maximum amount of charitability to people like fucking Asmongold? And weirdly enough, Muda is a Muslim himself, which is also crazy because he's also literally openly complained about his own fan base that he has cultivated coming after him with vicious statements. He was not talking about extremists, bro. He said it's, their inferior culture and their genocide is valid.
Islamic religion, extremists in the Islamic religion.
The case of Asmongold's suspension from Twitch was then weaponized against these pro-Palestine voices, most notably Hasan, in an effort to get him deplatformed. To do this, they compiled a number of short clips taken from Hasan's live streams, using them to accuse Hasan of things like supporting and promoting terrorism, allegedly denying October 7th sexual violence, and making anti-Semitic statements. Each one of the clips and their associated accusations can be...
Yeah, I think they had to delete all this shit because Bloomberg wrote an article and they had to literally delete so much of their fucking posts about me on the subreddit. I don't know if it's back at this point, but they were worried that they were going to lose their subreddit because they were so openly, nakedly fucking brigading in their Discord servers and on their fucking subreddits. Look at this. Look at this. Hasan might have Bernie Sanders on Monday. You know what to do. Send emails to his staff with the most obvious terrorist clips. Hezbollah, what? Hamas rapes. Made hostages hate America. Ethan speaks on the Houthis terrorists Hasan interviewed.
Terrorism.
Let's look at some of these choice fucking subreddit
October
posts.
7th sexual violence.
By the way, just want to point something out here, okay? Snark subreddits are unhealthy. This is a well-established position of mine. I've talked about this before. It's infinitely better not to hyper-focus on people that you fucking despise. What's interesting about this dynamic is that I know this because Destiny's community is a snark community for me. And now Ethan has done the exact same thing. He uses his fucking vast community, even though its numbers are diminishing every single fucking day, as a snark community against myself.
And making...
Which is why... all of his cries about like why certain subreddits won't get taken down are ridiculous. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna go after that Faumwa subreddit because I think that there's a vast Hamas conspiracy that like Hamas is running the drama subreddit of Faumwa. I'm gonna sue everyone. I'm gonna hit them with litigation so that I can fucking find out who they are and then actively tell everyone that they are being anti-Semitic. Falsely smear them as anti-Semites for the crime of what? Fucking complaining about being banned from his community as long fucking fans who had a disagreement with his opinion on Israel.
Anti-Semitic statements. Each one of the clips.
I think it's morally okay to target Hasan's sponsors and advertisers on Twitch. This is the thing, okay? This is the thing I want to mention to you, okay? This is the thing I want to mention to you. This kind of shit back in the day was seen as a no-go zone, okay? When a content creator and used his community in this way, every other content creator would be like, oh, you're trying to fuck up the bag. You're trying to fuck up the bag. You're going to ruin it for everybody else. This is going to have major consequences for everyone. What's really interesting about this process, okay, from the Destiny subreddit is that they very quickly realized I don't really have a lot of sponsors or advertisers. That is precisely why they went after the entire platform. That is precisely why they tried to take Twitch, an Amazon subsidiary, down in its entirety. Or at least force Twitch to fucking ban me. Okay? And Ethan went along with it. Because if I had fucking sponsors, if I actively had like long-term sponsors, they'd go after them like G Fuel or whatever the fuck, right? The type of sponsors that everybody gets sponsored by. But because the bulk of my support comes from you, and because of that, I don't like ever feel the need to get sponsors in general. And I do it every now and then. And I deny most sponsors that come to me with the opportunity. Then I accept them for the most part. Yes, you are my sponsors. You. That's why they actively try to separate you from me by smearing me over and over again to be like, he's not progressive. He's transphobic. He's homophobic. He's anti-black. He's not sufficiently pro-Palestinian. I guess they don't really say that because they're too fucking horny to say everyone who's pro-Palestine is actually, a racist terrorist. Epstein himself shat on who? Keffels for the no bad taxes, only bad targets nonsense in his manifesto back in the day, but these days their community proudly repeats that line. Yeah, but that's it. It's my subscribers that help me maintain my editorial independence regardless, okay? And they know that, which is why they try to get me fucking banned. And it didn't work, and they fucking lost their goddamn minds when it didn't work. Holy shit, dude. Thank you, Cutie McBitty, for the 10 gifted subs. Vil Morgar, thank you for the 10 gifted. D Machine Clutter, thank you for the 5 gifted. You Comrade. Are we ever going to have a shareholder day? Bitch, every day is a shareholder day. Every time you guys yell at me over minor issues and micromanage me, that is a shareholder meeting. Anyway.
Clips and their associated accusations.
Yeah, like imagine fucking going to Bernie Sanders, which also didn't work, by the way. It literally didn't work. Like they were like, oh yeah, let's go tell Bernie Sanders that the guy he's about to talk to is a vicious anti-Semite. Yeah, guess what, dude? What happened? I interviewed Bernie. He said he really loves my work. How'd that turn out?
Accusations can be traced back.
Remember when USC invited me to go speak on campus and they got 27,000 emails? 27,000 emails that had the same exact fucking terminology in it, where they were like, don't bring this person onto campus, Semite, who also has been banned off Twitch for racism. What kind of racism? Oh, that's right, anti-white racism, because I said cracker. The professor herself said it. 27,000 emails they sent to USC. Didn't fucking work. But when it doesn't work, they just double down. They become QAnon conspiracists. They think I control the media. You know what I mean? It's fucking insane.
Back to prominent.
Yeah, when I went on Podjon, they emailed the Podjons, emailed the CEO and random fucking producers at the Podjons. Hasan, before he became a terrorist sympathizer.
On Destiny's sub.
Something weird with Twitch and not letting you create new accounts in Israel.
Some of the clips were sourced.
Just confirmed. Israeli IPs are indeed banned from Twitch. Twitch is banned on Israel. Featured on mainstream Israeli television channel.
On from well over a year ago. These clips were initially hosted on a website created by a member of the campaign called HamasPiker.com. Soon after, another website was created. Dan claimed
HamasPiker.com, by the way, was created on October 10th, 2023. Think about how fucking insane that is. October 10th, October 14th, 2023. As in a week after October 7, these guys were like, ooh, and it was also an IP tracker, I think, as well. time to fucking use as an opportunity to shit on Hasan. It is fucking crazy.
ClancySucks.com, a reference to the CEO of Twitch, Dan Clancy. Another goal of this campaign was to get him fired from the company. This site also hosts all of these clips with their associated allegations: anti-Semitism, terrorist promotion, and rape denial. Eventually, several major YouTubers in the usually apolitical commentary.
Yeah, well, what happened? I thought these guys were apolitical. Turns out maybe they weren't. Also, interestingly enough, apparently this is what Ethan's response was to this video. Instead of watching the video, he said, God, these bread tubers are such pathetic fucking rats. When the fuck did I ever support a genocide? Question mark. I criticize your idol Hasan, and you all resort to straight up character assassination and horrific lies. By the way, character assassination and horrific lies should be the fucking subtitle of the content nuke. Should be called the context nuke. You fucking nuked context. That's what you nuked. It's always projection, bro. It's always fucking projection. Watch the video, Ethan. Watch the video. Watch the video live on your stream, okay? A campaign which resulted in the CPS call and harassment like I've never experienced in my 15 years of YouTube. Fuck you and fuck your movement. Socialism deserve better. What is the idea that like the CPS call is also attributed to like Noah Samsen or myself is also fucking insane. I would never in a million years think that that is an appropriate thing to do. It is a fucking morally repugnant thing to do, to fucking falsely call CPS on someone, okay? You're out of your fucking mind. Ridiculous. I swear to God, dude, someone could be a fucking straight up neo-Nazi, okay, who hates Ethan because he's Jewish, and he would still be like, this person who is a neo-Nazi who fucking also hates me, right, is actually a Hasan fan. Yeah, I'm the first time people fucking hated Ethan online, guys, famously. Even though I spent probably the entire year telling my audience to get over it and stop talking about Ethan and how it is utterly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things what he has to say about Israel and Palestine, and there was a fucking active genocide going on. If anything, Ethan has probably pushed people to start liking me more because of the way that he fucking behaves, or at the very least cause people who have their own personal opinions on Israel doing a genocide in Gaza to go, wait a minute, let me actually take a look. I feel like this Hasan guy, people fucking, if Ethan is talking about him like this and I don't agree with Ethan, and I know that Ethan is wrong on this Israel stuff, maybe this Hasan guy isn't fucking actually the asshole that I thought he was. Maybe other people were smearing him too. So thank you, Ethan. Your context puke probably is the reason why I have fucking 38,000 people in here. Yeah, that's what happened. It fucking nuked my career. Thank you. That's the other side of this cultish thinking, is that the more the intended effect doesn't happen, the more you lean into like insane conspiracies. I stubbed my toe. It must be Hasan and his anti-Semitic tendencies that caused me to stub my fucking toe. It's crazy. It's a crazy attitude to have. So welcome to the other side. He did poison the well by bringing up Nazis, bomb threatening him to prime his audience into hating you. This chat, Denim, Trisha, Ian, Anisa, Snarkers, Reddit CEOs, Twitch CEOs, Sam Cedar, the CPS caseworker. Wait, that's the other thing I don't understand. He knows that I get fucking bomb threats from Nazis too. What the fuck? There was a point in time when Ethan wasn't aligning himself with a lot of these people that are now defending him, where he knew very well what those people were doing to me. We actually bonded on our mutual experiences from these very same communities and the fandom from these very same communities that were actively also fucking coming after my family and whatnot. The reason why I don't talk about this stuff, by the way, openly, as opposed to Ethan here, is because the reality of the matter is there is very little prosecution that comes out of this, okay? There's very little you can do. I have a lot of experience in this field, but the reason why I don't talk about it is because nothing ever fucking happens, okay? Most of the people that are on the criminal justice side of this issue are old fucks that don't understand the cutting edge of internet live streaming, the parasocial nature of fandoms, and how some fucking rabid stalkers will go to insane lengths to ruin your fucking life. And because, and this is a reality that every single streamer knows, every single live streamer knows, regardless of which platform you're on, okay? That's why I talked about this when Valkyrie and Cinna unfortunately were victimized in broad daylight while they were live by a fucking rabid psychopathic stalker alongside Emeru, who said that they were going to kill them. That it's the tip of the iceberg. What you saw is the tip of the iceberg. Every streamer has experienced this, no matter how big or small, but they don't talk about it. The reason why they don't talk about it is because, one, there's not really any sort of serious prosecution that comes out of it, and two, it only creates copycats. Just so you know. As a victim, he has every right to talk about it publicly if he chooses to do so, but just make no mistake, this doesn't mean that this doesn't happen to fucking other content creators, okay? Maybe not the CPS call thing, but, you know, bomb threats, doxing, swatting, things of that nature.
Terry Sphere made videos that signal boosted these allegations to millions of viewers. Most of these videos used the same clips, many of them directly citing this smear campaign's website.
There's a website known as danclancysucks.com.
Or there's also a website that's been created called danclancysucks.com that goes over it all.
Another website, Advertise on Twitch, shows a collection of ads playing before the dishonestly framed clips we've looked at, and the contact information of the companies is provided. It auto-loads a preset email with just one click, allowing participants.
Yeah, by the way, I don't even have fucking ads. I don't run ads. They would literally go so far as to like show ads that people that I was hosting were running. Isn't that crazy?
In the campaign to mask.
Yeah, I understand you may have encountered messages like this before, but I'm reaching out with genuine concern. Why are you advertising on Twitch in proximity to extreme content? Recently, your ads have appeared alongside disturbing content that includes discussions minimizing the reality of October 7th attacks in Israel, promoting anti-Semitic rhetoric. Even more troubling, Twitch previously suspended all Israeli accounts for a year. A fucking lie! They sent straight up lies to every single news outlet. They mass emailed every single news outlet. Isn't that fucking nuts? Isn't that fucking insane? They actively unmasked and doxed Twitch staff in the process. That's what they did. One must ask the question why these guys can get away with doing all of this shit. This is what was happening on the background when I was trying to cover the fucking election. I know for a fact people on my team got emails from them. Yeah, yeah. It's also kind of funny because like the only ones that actually bit the bait were, you know, dish rags like the New York Post or fucking Fox News, for the record. Does it not scare you, not about yourself or what these idiots are saying, but that is now normal for more than 50% of everyone online is a dumb hog? Like, imagine spending this much effort. Imagine spending this much time and effort in coming after me. Yeah, the only people that bid on this fucking dumb fuck bullshit was Richie Torres, AIPAC's own attack dog, its #1 defender. Okay, Israel's #1 defender, Richie Torres, from the poorest district in the country, by the way. And New York Post, which is a fucking right-wing dish rag, and Fox News. They should have been spending all this time and effort doing something positive, you know what I mean? Like, instead of actively trying to deplatform the largest progressive content creator. How fucking psychotic. I worked in a congressional office last winter and would get calls about this Lamau. It hasn't stopped, by the way. If you think these efforts are done, Dan Saltman is apparently actively trying to get Tom Cotton to pull me in front of Congress to also smear me as an anti-Semite. Remember, these guys are liberals, by the way, but they want Tom Cotton. That's who Ethan has aligned himself with. That's who Ethan used in his context puke, his context nuke. Think about that. That would be peak television. I don't want to fucking do that, man.
Spam these companies.
Here's a video of your ad sponsoring Jew-hating content. I realize that messages like these often go unread or receive a standard response. However, I wanted to reach out directly. If I continue to see Oral-B ads on Twitch, the impression left is that such association with harmful content is acceptable to your company. Here are examples of content that is not banned on Twitch and ads have appeared by in the past.
With the related smears. There were several motivations behind this campaign. There were direct material incentives. On YouTube for the past few years, there's a big industry that's exploded in popularity, and it's based on a simple concept. Hasan bad, Hasan Piker is bad, and he's dumb, and bad and a terrorist, probably. We can call this the HasanAbi dunk video industrial complex. It's common for YouTubers during low view months to join in on the fun and make these types of videos.
Yeah, anytime someone's like career is waning, because people have presented me as the avatar for all things social justice warrior related, or all things that is like liberal, or all things fucking left, depending on what that person's particular perspective is, doesn't really matter. What their ideological background doesn't really matter. That's all they fucking do is like Hasan fucking bad. That's how you know rent is due. It's not just on YouTube, obviously. There's also, the Twitter version of this. All those fucking psychotic stake-funded accounts that rip clips from other people. They do that every now and then too. They hit that like classic, I'll get like 30K likes on this easy. That's it. There's a major reason why, well, there's two reasons why this hasn't really stopped me from, you know, continuing to do what I do and to reach levels of success that I hadn't reached prior. One, because I have a fucking real ideological conviction, and many people that actually do come here realize, oh, when this person is not framed in a negative way, I realize that maybe I was duped, okay? I was maybe being played, and I think that this person is a bad person, but it turns out I was lied to about his actual intentions, his actual worldview, okay? The other reason also is that virtually all of these people lose their minds in the process of doing the fuck Hasan nonsense, and then inevitably they out themselves as horrifying monsters one way or another.
Taking short clips from Hasan's thousands of hours of live streaming to misrepresent what he's saying, usually parroting the exact same talking points they're getting from the same YouTubers in the same community. They're watching each other's videos and making each other's videos. It's kind of...
It's all recycled. It's all literally recycled shit from Destiny subreddit too, which I'm so glad that Ethan also joined in on the fun there.
Like a perpetual cycle of dumb guy slop. It's interesting to see YouTubers that typically cover TikTok drama and gaming content randomly giving their opinions on genocide and geopolitics, but that's the result of such an ecosystem. It's not about the politics, it's about making money by attacking a guy they don't like because the guy in question happens to be a political content creator. They have to try to do politics. It's really funny to watch, honestly. It's also wild because the political content creator in question is an anti-genocide content creator, and the arguments they're attacking him for are anti-genocide arguments. So these creators, you know, they're positioning themselves in opposition to him and his arguments, de facto positioning themselves on the pro-genocide side, you know, anti-genocide.
Yeah. It's a great way to not really say anything and not really openly, you know, admit your position, while simultaneously taking a position. Oh, I do like, you know, I do like the Palestinians, but this Hasan guy fucking sucks. He sucks. You can't say that I'm like, you know, anti-trans. I just think Hasan sucks. And there are a lot of people who watch these fucking dumbass drama slop tubers. It's a easily consumable form of content. So they get their nose from those guys, and instead of making up their own goddamn minds, they just go, all right, well, I've seen this. I've seen this everywhere, so I guess it must be true.
Is pro-genocide. It's quite the precarious predicament they've placed themselves in. Do they realize it? No. Do they care? Probably not. But that's what's happening. You know, that's what they're doing. The success of Ethan's video, which garnered over 3 million views in its first month, is a testament to the algorithmic viability of Hasan bad content. Get in front of a politically illiterate...
This part I don't agree with, because Ethan's last content nuke was on Keemstar. And all of his fucking videos, all of his videos on that channel 4 years prior, when's the last time he ever fucking posted on that channel, had a shit ton more views than the fucking content nuke. I think Ethan thought that that content nuke was going to change the game. It was going to get 10 million views, or maybe even 8 million views like the Keemstar video did. And he thought that he thought that the internet would treat me like they're currently treating him, either be totally quiet about their involvement with anything related to me, or just actively come out against me, be like, oh my God, it turns out this Hasan guy was bad all along. Okay. And when that didn't happen, he lost his fucking mind. He literally thought that like mainstream media would cover. How the fuck would they do that, dude? The very same people that actually gave you the information, the fucking 2 hours worth of clips out of context, they already tried this in a more sophisticated way than you could ever imagine, by, you know, presenting themselves as concerned citizens randomly, by sending this shit to every outlet that would listen, to every outlet that would watch. And of course it wasn't going to work. I'm a fan of Nagla and Terrorizer, but I'm saddened to see they jumped on this train and are slowly spreading their focus on attitude to the Vanas crew. I feel like you just made those names up. There is no, what are you saying? What is any of this? What is the words that you are, what? Nagla and the Terrorizer and the Vanas crew? What is that? No, those are actual streamers. No, those are real people. Those are old gaming YouTubers. What? Why would gaming YouTubers be like, fuck Hasan? Yeah. Every time someone comes in here and says some shit, this is what I think. It's on Tubu. It's literally on Hebe. It's on Pootie with the ads. It's literally on Dippy. You can probably find it on Weeno. Dude, it's on Gumpy. It's a Phoebo original. It's on Poob. You can watch it on Poob. You can go to Poob. That's what I think. Every time someone comes in here and is just like, you don't understand, dude. Pootie Poo said this about you on Scourgeberg. I'm like, what the fuck? Listen, I'm sure these guys aren't obscure at all. I just don't know because I'm 33 fucking years old, okay? And I don't watch a lot of YouTube. That's the thing. I'm 33. I don't watch a lot of YouTube and I watch zero Twitch. This is precisely the reason why I have no fucking clue what you guys are saying. Okay? I'm not like undermining their success or popularity. I'm sure they're fucking awesome. Calm down, Gen X, Mark Maron. What is this?
Really do in response to this is try to go after other people that are near Caseytron, right? And I don't want to sink to that level. Like, I don't want to go, trust me, I've already gotten some things of people going like, hey, I know Hasan's a part of this talent agency and has like this sponsor and like these people who support Twitch. We should email. And I'm like, no, don't, stop.
Oh man,
please.
After the election, we'll start looking at all that, okay?
It's just.
These guys hate each other now, by the way, because this guy victimized one of this guy's friends. So now this guy has actively been campaigning against Sexpestiny for doing sex pest shit. But make no mistake, you know, I suspect that he probably still has a lot of resentment towards me for existing, I think.
Just, yeah.
Yeah.
Literate American audience and call a pro-Palestine influencer a terrorist.
Promoting hateful terrorist music videos.
Terrorist propaganda videos.
Terrorist propaganda video.
Collect.
That's the other side of this. That's like so fucking stupid. Terrorist propaganda videos is a video of the Ansar Allah movement talking about Saudi Arabia doing a genocide to them. Like, I watch all matter of terrorist propaganda videos. I watch American military videos. I've watched Israeli military videos on this fucking broadcast. Back in the day, we used to have a fucking tier list of who makes the best videos. We watched ISIS videos on this fucking broadcast, okay? The notion that all of these are across the board the same is obviously ridiculous, but they are using terrorist propaganda videos to just basically say, oh, don't look into any of this, okay? Do not look into any of this. Just know that he's a bad Muslim guy who loves bad Muslims. Yeah, IRA, come out, ye black and tans. At the top of the hour, every hour, dude. That's a terrorist propaganda video. That's a terrorist propaganda song. This right here, at the top of the fucking hour, every hour back in the day, I used to play this song. Okay? And I would tell you, at the top of the hour, every hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and ambies, if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite broadcaster. A supporter of all things. A supporter of all fighters against colonialism. A supporter of all fighters against empire. Like the fucking IRA. That's what I mean. It's just like, one of the funnier parts about this also was that they tried to do this with a North Korean song too.
Cheers that you loudly let us hear when our leaders of 16 were executed. Come out, sugar like and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals
down in Flanders.
The IRA
Major on like Hathaway from the green and lovely lanes of Kelashandra. Come tell us how you slew them old Arabs 2 by 2.
Like the Zulus dead
spears and bows and arrows.
How bravely you faced
One with your 16-pounder gun.
and you frightened them down
Natives to the marrow.
Come out, sugar like and tans,
Come out and fight me like a man.
Show your wife how you won medals down at Flanders. The IRA
Major on like hell away.
from the green and lovely lanes of Kelashandra.
Anyway, the existence of the Irish and the Scottish negates the need for the British. I agree. So, you know, it's more so about like where you shift your attention and priorities to. It's obviously like a little bit harder for people to be like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing like pro-IRA propaganda because they're white. Also, I can't wait to fucking link up with Kneecap when they're out here in the U.S. It's going to happen when they come out to the United States. Just for the record, yeah, Kneecap will be on this stream, baby. Don't you fucking worry about it. Let's continue. I'm an Irish Republican patriot.
Big fat AdSense check. That's how it goes. And Ethan knew it would do well too and made sure to get a sponsor for the video.
Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video.
Which was a VPN company that happens to be owned by an Israeli billionaire with a history of funding and supporting the IDF. He's not a Zionist though, apparently. Apparently he's not a Zionist, and he's pro-Palestine.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
A few years ago, Destiny was banned from Twitch. Since then, he has repeatedly attempted to be reinstated on the platform, and the latest attempt by using the campaign was probably the closest he's ever been in terms of putting pressure on the platform.
We're tired of your site changing the rules every week. Nobody knows what's going on. Get your shit together, unban Destiny, and fucking make a site that people actually want to go to.
Dedicated the last like 2 weeks of my life basically to Steve's cause.
You're talking about the Twitch thing?
That's the guy that Ethan had on his video, by the way. Hey guys, hey, he's not linked up with these dudes, even though it came out that he was directly emailing Dan Saltman, by the way.
Yeah, destroying Twitch.
Some of the motivations for the campaign are political in nature, though, obviously. You know, Hasan Piker is one of the most prominent pro-Palestine voices. It's been orchestrated by Zionists. The website that started this campaign, HamasPiker.com, doubled as a donation page for a prominent Zionist organization. Since learning about the existence of Israel on October 7th of 2023, Destiny has positioned himself as its #1 cheerleader, showing up to debates to defend the genocidal apartheid state using Zionist talking points and denying that a genocide is taking place. On the Lex Friedman Israel-Palestine debate, Destiny justified Israel's slaughter of 4 Palestinian children in the Gaza beach bombings using talking points plucked directly from IDF spokespeople.
Those kids weren't just on the beach, as is often stated in articles. Those kids were literally coming out of a previously identified Hamas compound that they had operated from. They literally did. You can Google it. You can Google it.
With all due respect, you're such a fantastic moron. It's
I think this probably... Like, this was amazing because it was such a visible debate where this fucking sex pest was so thoroughly undermined by an interlocutor that knew so much more than he did. By 2 interlocutors, really. That even his own debate partner was just fucking laughing at him. Like, what an incredible moment. Because, like, up until this moment, I don't think a lot of people knew him as anything but like the guy who autistically dunks on some of the stupidest fucking right-wingers you've ever seen, right? Clips like that would go viral all the time. I think people just basically knew him as that guy. This debate, on the other hand, changed that dynamic where people found out what he was about.
Terrifying.
I left Finkelstein's iconic response in there because he is 100% correct. The events of that day were witnessed by dozens of journalists. There is no real dispute as to what happened except from, of course, the party that slaughtered the children, which is Israel, and in turn its propagandists, like Destiny.
A group of boys.
Hold on, sorry.
Cousins playing on the beach.
There's a
now,
TOS here.
Were running for their lives until seconds later, another shell hit. Israel claimed it was firing on Hamas militants at the port, but the dead were 4 young boys.
He's also explicitly called for the genocide of Palestinians.
Honestly, I'm pro-genocide. Like, it sounds really shitty, but like, I think that Israel should just draw up its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but like, that's about where I'm at.
It's this guy and his community who are
it's
the source for every one of the arguments that Ethan makes in his
Hasan,
video. Do stalwart advocates
something weird on Twitch
for Palestinians normally collaborate with advocates for Palestinian genocide?
Hasan's favorite terrorist group is having a Luffy moment. They're killing civilians.
No, they do not, in my opinion. Destiny's podcast co-host Dan Saltman, the other main driver behind this campaign and the one spearheading the creation of these smear websites, is also a Zionist. Saltman promoted pro-Israel organizations like the ADL and stopped anti-Semitism, and Zionist politicians like Richie Torres, who...
Also, the other side of this story, this conquest to tackle anti-Semitism, is that it's conducted by people who have said, like, a shit ton of actually anti-Semitic things. Like Destiny himself in private logs, or not even in private logs, but like public logs on DG has been talked about saying like genocide the Jews and shit like that. Dan Saltman has said a bunch of horrifying things as well about Jewish people in general. Dan Saltman himself is Jewish. Ethan Klein himself has actively said awful shit about Orthodox Jews. Like, he tried to make it seem as though I wasn't calling the KKK inbred, and that I was actually calling a bunch of young, industrious Jewish folk in Israel that weren't fucking actively burning aid going into Gaza, but instead I was calling all Jews inbred. That's what he kept saying over and over again. Okay? Meanwhile, I obviously wasn't directing this at all Jewish people or whatever the fuck. I was talking about these specific rabid terrorists that Ethan also called charity workers, which was fucking ridiculous. But nice, benign dudes who are doing charity. Okay? Insane. But that's not, there's so much more that he has done and said that is infinitely, infinitely more anti-Semitic than the claims that he's even making against me without any sort of evidence whatsoever. The evidence is just a clip copy. Yes. There's videos of you calling Ahmaud Arbery's killers inbred. You've called extreme fundamentals conservatives inbreds for years and years. Exactly. Yeah. Here is Dan, Hark Dan Saltman. Evolution explains why Jews are so powerful and blacks are not. The only Jews to escape the Holocaust were the smartest of the smart. So the only ones left by definition are the creme de la creme. Now take blacks. The only ones we have in America for the most parts are dumb of the dumb who got caught from the slavers. So it's evolution at work. That's the guy that Ethan posted about and took notes from in his context nuke. That's the guy who he prominently featured in his context nuke. When you argue with us SJW. Now these logs are from 10 years ago. You might be saying, oh, I'm sure Dan Saltman doesn't have this kind of opinion now. Yes, he does. He 100 million% does, okay? He says shit like this and more on a daily fucking basis.
Who shared and boosted the campaign, he consistently weaponizes Zionist talking points, like asserting that any reference to Zionism is actually just coded anti-Semitic.
Yeah. I mean, he literally fucking retweeted like Sam Hyde and other neo-Nazis recently because they were dunking on me. Sam Hyde defenders. I don't know. Call me crazy. I don't think this guy gives a fuck about anti-Semitism.
Semitic language, the implication there being, of course.
Yeah. He's also talking about like Elon Musk, like retweeting Elon Musk and shit.
Any reference to Zionism is
yeah. He's
just
he's
coded
claiming that anyone that says fucking Zionist is actually using it as a substitute for Jew. First of all, in this fucking day and age, when anti-Semitism is literally seen as a benefit, okay, by right-wing content creators, why the fuck would anybody hide their anti-Semitic tendencies?
Semitic language, the implication there being, of course, that criticizing Israel and Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic. That's a very common Zionist tactic. It's like the Zionist tactic, in the West at least. Perhaps the most significant motivation, though, and indicative of the sort of unserious nature of this campaign, is just spite. These people all seem to have deep personal vendettas against Hasan and these other creators that should give one pause when considering the seriousness of the campaign that they're running.
God, he's so cringe. He's like such a cringe loser. I would pay we'd raise $1 million to send this dude to go fight in Yemen, and then all of us would volunteer for the Navy. Holy shit, he's such a cringe.
Destiny has, for almost 5 years, just obsessively talked about Hasan on his channel. He's made video after video about him. The frequency of these videos increased after Destiny was banned from Twitch. In the span of time since then, he has uploaded almost 80 videos about Hasan out of a total of like 450 videos. So that's at least
Jesus
1/5 of his working life.
That is fucking crazy. 80 videos that directly mention me in the fucking title or thumbnail. Holy fuck! These motherfuckers have the audacity to say I'm rent-free, bro. What the fuck? Bro, my own parents don't love me and think about me this much. Holy fuck, dude. Hasan loses it after getting called out beyond irresponsible. 621,000 views. This is literally about IDF bombing a hospital in Gaza, by the way. They bombed every hospital in Gaza! All that remains from this commentary is the fucking ad revenue that he generated. That was the only interest he had in fucking Israel-Palestine, was to find an opportunity to be like, fuck Hasan. And people willingly went along with it. That's why so many people fucking left this community after October 7, only to return later. To be back, to be like, okay, maybe you were kind of right, because I'm fucking finally realizing that maybe the things you said about Israel is not incorrect. What is this? You don't know the half of it? If you only knew how he mentions you daily? What the fuck is this? Oh, this is a way to track, like, search Hasan, upload date descending. This is virtually every video that he's mentioned me in. Holy fuck. How many times a day is he mentioning me? RIP Hasan chilling and streaming. This guy should be fucking worrying about his own sex charges, okay? His sex pest charges. Hasan's illiberal. Reddit Hamas network exposed, and Dean told Hasan is illiberal. Fucking obsessed, dude. Holy fuck. There's 1,500 clips found from channels. Destiny's channel, Last Night on Destiny, Destiny Clips, Dalaban Headquarters Highlights, and Dalaban Headquarters. 1,500 clips. Did you call out Asman's hypocrisy and calling for a politics tag to be added on Twitch, claiming that he himself should be affected by it, then talking politics nonstop every day? Asmongold doesn't use the tag. I'm shocked. Because they tried, after that tag was implemented, people tried to fucking get me banned actively. Except I always have the politics tag on. I'm surprised that Asman doesn't always have the politics tag on. That is literally a fucking bannable offense, for the record. I doubt that he doesn't use the politics tag. That would be shocking. Why do you spread hate? Yes, dude. I'm spreading hate. My hatred, don't do genocide. If you think don't do genocide is spreading hate, then maybe you are the hateful person.
Life spent talking about Hasan. In contrast, in the same span of time, Hasan has uploaded over 1,200 videos, and he's talked about Destiny a total of 5 times.
All of which came after the Israel shit. Oh my God. It feels good to finally see someone fucking actively show this disparity. And it's not just me being like, am I going crazy? Like, this man does not stop talking about me.
5. 4 of them have come in the last few months while covering Destiny's role in this smear campaign and the credible allegations of sex crimes against him. So that's less than 1% of his coverage. This isn't an internet beef. Hasan has a stalker. With Ethan, I feel like I can kind of spot the moment that he started going into this direction, which was the moment that people started calling him racist for saying racist stuff. It was one argument he made where he compared Jewish voice for peace anti-Zionist activists to capos.
There was Jewish collaborators with fucking Nazis.
Ethan, don't do that, please. Don't say that the Jews' voice for peace are akin to capos. Like, that's...
I'm telling you that the mere existence of Jewish voices it's not a leg to stand on. I don't understand that.
The chat started calling him a Zionist freak because that's a Zionist freak thing to say. And then since then, he's sort of constructed an entire...
Which was really interesting because at the time, I thought genuinely that he was actually stepping on a fucking landmine, which you can see in the conversation that we're having. Okay? I was like, oh, dude, come on. You're pro-Palestinian. Why the fuck are you saying this? Like, obviously, people that don't understand that you're pro-Palestinian are going to think, if this is their first introduction to you, that you are a fucking Zionist freak. Because that's what Zionist freaks say. Like, it's just like you are so freakishly pro-Israel at that point that, like, that is what people are going to think about you, okay? That's what people are going to think about you. Why are you doing this? That was the conversation that I was having. And then for a fucking year, I literally told my chat over and over again, like, stop going after Ethan. It doesn't matter. Remember back in 2021 where he posted that thing about Israel? Like, far before October 7. Meanwhile, in that process, unbeknownst to me, he literally was fucking running around saying way worse shit. Only after did he actively join the battle alongside Sex Pestiny and Dan Saltman and try to get me fucking deplatformed, and also actively went after other smaller pro-Palestinian content creators as well and actively get them fucking deplatformed successfully, that I go, okay, this is completely unacceptable.
mind prison around, and anyone calling him racist is actually the real racists. And because Hasan's community is politically oriented and is able to spot the racist rhetoric in question, that means they're all extremists and Hasan is leading them, so he's an extremist. And that Hasan and them are all the problem, and that he's a perfect angel, which is the direction he's taken, it seems like.
It's also funny because, like, he simultaneously took this position where it was like, oh, if you say someone is a Zionist and they're Jewish, you're actually just, you know, saying that they're a Jew, right? You're being anti-Semitic. But then he would also turn around and be like, 90% of Jews are Zionists. So if you actually criticize Zionism, which is a fascist political ideology built around ethno-religious supremacy and is the underpinning of a settler colonial genocidal apartheid state, okay, which was born out of the ethnic displacement of 750,000 Palestinians, for the record, then if you criticize that ideology, that means you hate Jews. Which one is it? What is it?
My only crime is wanting a two-state solution.
Yeah, don't spout Zionist discourse, then shrug. You're just showing you're a Zionist, Ethan. He's actually so racist, Lamau. He's so Islamophobic, Lamau. It was correct. They were right. Why did you put this in your fucking nuke? That's what's so crazy. At the time, I literally was trying to explain to Ethan, like, I was like, Ethan, Frogan is a fucking fan of yours. Like, how do you not understand that this person whose, like, village is fucking possibly being bombed, which later, obviously, when Israel did invade Lebanon, it did happen. But, like, at the time, I'm like, yeah, this person is looking at you as a fan of yours, as a former fan of yours, and cannot comprehend the words that are coming out of your mouth. Yeah, I like that he made this entire video to be like, look at how wrong these people are for calling me a Zionist, while simultaneously you made a fucking video defending Israel.
Instead of one, and thinking it's not okay to kill Israeli civilians. That's it.
Israelis are so afraid of genocide, they're genociding Palestinians to expand their borders. Never again, unless it's those dirty Arabs. Like, that's
why they're calling me a Nazi Zionist.
And now he's just totally gone off the rails.
Yeah, Frogan was right. Like, the fuck do you mean?
He spends most of his time cowering in fear behind Instagram stories that people can't respond to. Every single one of the uploads on his personal YouTube channel in the last number of months have been targeted towards Hasan. He spent most of his...
My favorite is the why does nobody care one. It's such a perfect reaction.
Live podcast talking about Hasan and calling him a terrorist and whatnot.
What is this? Bro, I have not seen a single one of his fucking Instagram stories. I didn't know he was posting about me this much. Oh my God. Every day? Every single day? No.
There was that one Instagram story where Ethan Klein was having to evacuate due to the wildfires or something, and he managed to make the post about Hasan and about how Hasan probably thinks it's burned down while his family is in the background trying to evacuate the wildfires. Just wild. Ethan Klein has repeatedly denied any association.
And then he tried to turn around and fucking criticize me for going and personally evacuating my two friends, Caroline and Will. Okay, I remember that too. That was also hilarious, where he was simultaneously shitting on Caroline while also seemingly defending Caroline by saying Hasan is laughing in their fucking face. Hasan is laughing in their fucking face.
With this campaign and Destiny or his community, that may have something to do with the recent credible allegations that Destiny is a sex criminal, but this is false. Ethan has been caught on his live podcast browsing the Destiny subreddit for arguments.
Yeah, Destiny mods urgently ask for clips of Hasan discouraging people from voting. Okay, within minutes, folks, I need to find some clips of Hasan discouraging people from voting. Give me what you can. And they couldn't find it. Because there is no fucking clip of me urging people not to vote. I've never been an anti-vote guy.
Arguments to use to attack Hasan.
Yeah. Destiny's mod requests examples of Hasan discouraging people from voting again at 4:06.
Hasan leaks Discord logs show Dan Saltman admitting to exchanging emails with Ethan and the H3 team personally during the campaign. And even if there wasn't evidence of direct communication, the far more important connection is that Ethan is saying the exact same things, using the same out-of-context clips that everyone else used to call Hasan a terrorist or whatever. It's been a group effort. That's just what it is. So just a few final thoughts here. Zionism is Nazism. It's an ethnic supremacist, expansionist, colonial ideology. You can't have Zionism without genocide and ethnic cleansing. That's the end goal of the project. It's what it is. Palestinians are there, and for the Zionist project to be complete, they have to go. Starve them out, bomb them, destroy everything they need to live. Those are the methods. Those are what they're employing as we speak. And like Nazism, Zionism cannot be defeated through reform or debate. It must be destroyed from the outside.
How long do these freaks start trying to make AI videos of you because they can't find real videos of doing the shit they say? Doesn't Ethan use like a AI voice of me already? So it's not long. It's been happening. Someone told me. I don't know if it's actually... I think that they've been doing that. I know Destiny did one. He did the cringiest AI rap battle where he physically rap battled against an AI version of me. That's a real thing. How the fuck does nobody realize that that is the most insane thing you can do? Like, that is not mental wellness. That is a picture of losing your fucking mind. He used a nuke. No, I'm not going to show you. I'm going to spare you the AI rap battle video because I don't want you to all die from cringe.
Outside through efforts made by the Palestinian people, the Palestinian resistance, and coalitions of allies. As history has shown, the downfall of these kinds of racist ideologies is possible, but Zionists cannot be a part of this process. They're Zionists. They uphold Zionism by spreading Zionist propaganda and spending all their time and effort attacking anti-Zionists, even as those anti-Zionists are actively fighting against a genocide that Zionism is the ideological pretext for. In the case of liberal Zionists like Ethan Klein, using his weird personal Zionist crash out as a jumping off point to educate people about the ideology that he adheres to is a great use of time, I think. And Bad Empanada has done a fantastic job with that. His videos have reached pretty wide audiences and exposed them to the reality and history of the genocidal Zionist project. That's a really good thing. That's a really important thing that he's doing, and I think many of you can probably also help out with that. Most of you have smartphones and cameras and TikTok, so go ahead. Start posting about it. Spread the word. Aside from being a morally good thing to do, it's also becoming sustainable. You know, it's algorithmically viable. The Ethan Klein crash out industrial complex is booming, and we can harness it as a propaganda machine to expose Zionism for the genocidal ideology that it is. You may have the feeling, as I often have, that the history books will look back upon these times and those who supported the Gaza genocide with shame and horror. The only problem with that...
By the way, E Today shouted out Boner Box as the one people who should be people. E Today shouted out Boner Box as the one who people should be watching, and this is what Boner Box said recently.
Guys can literally get proven wrong in the most obvious fucking way, and they will still just chug on like nothing happened. Like, how obviously wrong was it that that story about the Al-Ali hospital? The idea that...
How obviously wrong was it? The fuck? The fake misfired rocket video was debunked. Israel literally also tried to use the same exact thing at Al-Shifa a week later. It was debunked again.
Israel airstruck. And
it's so crazy that this man is still talking about Al-Ahli hospital when every fucking hospital is in rubble, okay? Who the fuck is this for? I don't understand it. Like, who still at this day and age has not made up their minds? Like, either people are just like, yes, I'm pro-Israel. I think everything that Israel is doing is for valid security concerns or whatever. Or people are just like, yeah, no, Israel is a fucking apartheid on a good day and doing genocide every other fucking day. Like, who is looking at this and going, yeah, remember that time when Israel fucking lied about the Al-Ahli hospital that I'm going to act like wasn't a lie at all? Like, how are you still holding on to that? It's like debating the details of the Night of the Long Knives in 1946. Yeah, just exact and being like, you don't understand. Not all the victims were Jewish or some shit. You know what I mean? Like what the fuck kind of insane attitude is this? Literally.
And flattened a hospital, killing 500 people, which is what Bad Empanada said about it when it happened. And even after a year of every investigation, left, right, center disagreeing with you, and still just going to... how do you know Israel didn't bomb it? Like, yeah, they don't care. There's no point. These guys...
What do you... that's crazy. Israel allies and Five Eyes repeated their false story. No evidence of a misfire rocket has ever been produced. The bombing was focused on the courtyard of the hospital where hundreds of families were sleeping. There are videos of body parts being picked up off the lawn. After the misfire rocket video was debunked, propaganda switched to claiming the explosion was too small to be Israeli. Bunker busters. Nonsense. Here's the Shifa story where Israel was caught trying the same lie again. I just don't understand why you would try to be so fucking bad faith, you know? No, I unbanned this person. Don't ban him again. That triggered me. Oh man, that's crazy. You're saying that when you got offended by something, I wasn't even directed at you. Have fun with that. You suck. Not gonna lie. I'm unbanning Tony. I think Tony's got some good ideas.
That is that these people feel no shame. They're here to make money and to convince themselves that they aren't evil. And the way they do that is by lying, by spreading liberal Zionist propaganda. It's profitable and it's easy and it's acceptable. You're allowed to say that you think all Palestinians should die.
I'm pro-genocide.
And still get invited to Jubilee as a resident liberal. You're allowed to do it and run your quirky, epic, silly podcast and make hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that because the Western media ecosystem encourages it. There will be no justice for the Palestinian people if all we do is watch content about what's happening. Consumption is not politics. There will be no justice for the victims of this genocide unless we all actively fight for it. From the position that most of the viewers of this video have, that's by using the resources and time to continue to speak out, preserve the record of what's actually happened in Gaza, name the perpetrators, and highlight and boost the voices that understand these facts more than anyone in the world. That is, the Palestinian people. Don't stop sharing their stories or contributing to direct aid. I'll leave a document below with some Palestinian voices and outlets that you should follow and campaigns to contribute to. In If I Must Die, Rifat El-Arir tells the story of Yasser Ashur, a young Palestinian survivor of Operation Cast Lead, Israel's late 2008 onslaught in Gaza. During Cast Lead, Israel bombed a UN school, which was also designated a safe zone, killing 44 civilians. Ashur was 14 at the time of the attack, and Israel killed 5 of his classmates and friends. Ever since the massacre, Ashur has tried to honor the memories of his classmates by exposing Israeli crimes. I run a few Twitter accounts with tens of thousands of followers. He said, "The battle for justice for Palestine over social media is crucial, and we have to win it. We don't have Israel's billions, but we have the power of the truth." And that's what we have. We have the truth. October 7th, the genocidal Israeli project. October 7th is the reason you're here watching this video today. Israel's response to it has radicalized a generation of people by exposing the Israeli state and its backers in the West for what they are: depraved, ethnic supremacist, genocidal lunatics. That's the truth. We have all these tools to speak the truth, and now's the time to do that. So just do it. I don't know. Don't stop fighting for it. Free Palestine.
Great video. Fucking fantastic video. No notes.